Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto makes his way through the world on his way to be a Pokegirl master. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Naruto Uzumaki smiled as he laid on the beach in Wave Country as he looked up at the sky through his sunglasses. Besides him, a red-headed also laid on the sand of the beach, and Naruto asked, "So how long do you think it will take for the ship to be ready, Q?" Kyuubi, who was in her human form with a genjutsu over herself to hide her fox ears and tails, said, "Tazuna said it will be at least tomorrow before the ship is ready." Naruto nods and said, "It's been what, Q, 6 weeks since Konoha?" Kyuubi said, "Something like that. You know, even if we helped, it wouldn't have changed the fact Konoha would fall. Most of my power was sealed away when I was released behind that 5-star seal, and all you had besides me was your Kage Bunshin, and that would have just been cannon fodder against Chunin and Junins, much less that sand demon we heard people talk about." Naruto sighed and said, "I know, I can't believe Konoha really gone though. I guess it's a good thing I decided to start a new life when I did, huh?" Q said, "Yeah, so what do you want to do? You got that water walking down now that you saw Zabuza do, and you have his sword now." Naruto nods and said, "Yeah, those scrolls you took during the month break for me will come in handy. I can't believe the old man lied to me about who my parents were. At least I know now they both died and didn't abandon me, and they loved me." Q nods and said, "To think. Your father was the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze and your mother was Kushina Uzumaki." Naruto smiled a little and said, "Yeah, they left me behind some jutsu that I can learn along with those books on sealing, and some money. My Kage Bunshin are all reading the books and working on the jutsu. Glad Dad left a note about how Kage Bunshin give their knowledge back to the user when they dispel. It's how he did paperwork so quickly. At least he had the counter to that 5-star seal in the scrolls he left me as well." Q looked at the sky and said, "I'm getting hungry, let's go catch some fish to eat." Naruto nods as he gets up, and Q walks beside him as they head toward the woods a mile away, and when they got there they began to looking for a river. When they found one, Naruto walked toward the river and asked, "So what's the world like we going to?" Q said, "Honestly, I don't really remember, and I am sure it's probably change." As she looked at the river and slowly stepped into the water and stood in the middle of it. Naruto followed her example and got in the water about 100 yards away from her, and they both stood still for about 5 minutes when Naruto jerked his hand out of the water, throwing a fish on the shore, and said, "I never really did tell you thank you for teaching me that trick to catch fish." Q smiled and said, "No problem, Kit. It's the least I can do for keeping me from going feral again." Naruto snorts and said, "Who knew Naruto Uzumaki would become an addict?" Q chuckled and said, "It's in your blood, Kit, but you're really not an addict. I mean, you and me have only done it what? 0.6 times, and that's only when I start to go feral after the first time. Besides, you're going to have to get used to it if you are going to become a tamer in the other world." Naruto sighed and said, "Well, I admit the benefits seem like a good idea from what you told me, but since I don't really know anything about the world I need something to be able to support myself, and being a tamer seems like the best option to do that." Just then several splashes were heard, and Naruto looked up as 5 fish hit the bank, and Q smiled as she walks out of the water, and Naruto did as well as he grabbed his fish and he sat his with hers and quickly grabbed some firewood, and Q held out her hand as a small flame came out of her hand and she threw it at the firewood and it set to flame, and Naruto asked, "Hey, how do you do that anyways?" Q said, "Well, it's called fireball. I learned it when I was still a dark kitsune before I evolved into a Kyuubi through a ritual." Naruto nods and puts a stick through several of the fish and set them on the fire. They sat in silence until the fish were done, and Naruto gave Q her 5 and he took his, and they began to eat. After they were done, Naruto said, "Well, I think we should train. If I am going to be a tamer, I am going to be the best there is, so I need to help you get stronger as well as myself." Q nods and said, "There's the spirit." As she got into a fighting stance and Naruto charges at her and they began to spar. The next day Naruto stood on a small 50-feet yacht with sails as well as several brand new motors, and he looked at the great Naruto bridge that people were standing on, and Naruto said, "Thanks again for building this for me. I plan to see the world now, and with this ship I will be able to accomplish it." Tazuna, who was standing on the bridge along with his family, said, "It's the least we can do to help you after your home was destroyed. The fact you paid for it with the money you earned before you came here just made it where the labor and a little time was all we had to sacrifice, and for a hero like you we were more than willing after you gave us a new start. Naruto said, I want to also thank all of you fishermen who took me or my clones out on your ships and taught us how to sail. I will use those skills to survive on the sea. A man with a scar on his face and several missing teeth said, spoken like a true sailor. Tell me kid, what will you name her? Naruto looked at the ship and said, Konoha, after my lost home. Inari said, will we ever see you again Naruto-ni-san? Naruto looked at him and said, maybe someday Inari. The future is unknown, so live your life as best as you can and be happy. Tsunami said, take care of yourself Naruto, and know you and your friend are welcome here anytime, so come see us when you are in the area. Naruto said, I will. I guess we better get going now. You ready Q? Kyuubi stepped out from the cabin and said, ready when you are Kit. Naruto nods and he puts his hands together and said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As Tenkage Bunshin appeared and Naruto said, alright, you know what to do. As they moved around the ship and the sails raised and the yacht slowly left the land of Wave. 1 week later Naruto saw an island in the distance and asked, is that it? Q looked at the island and then at the compass and said, yeah. That's it, though it looks like someone's on the island since I see smoke. Naruto frowned and said, should we go to the island? Q said, might as well, we still have until tomorrow before the full moon, and the shield won't drop until midnight on the full moon, and then only for an hour before and an hour after. Naruto nods and yells, secure the sails and drop anchor. Secure the ship and prepare the dingy. As several clones run around and began to work as Naruto began his own task as captain. After all the clones secured the yacht, Naruto and Q both climbed into the dinghy and Naruto grabbed the oars and started to paddle them toward the island, and Q said, you know, it's a good thing you started using that sword for 2 hours a day getting used to it, or you wouldn't be able to get us to the island and back because you didn't have the upper body strength to do it. Naruto grunted and said, you know, I could have left you on the ship. Q said, and miss my company. You wouldn't do that, with a smirk on her face. Naruto grunted and said, well, hide the ship with an illusion so nobody but us can get to it. And Q looked at the ship and her eyes glossed over a second and the ship disappeared from view as they headed toward the island. When they made it to the island, Naruto pulled the dinghy onto the shore and then he tied it to a tree and he said, well, looks like the smoke is coming from the north side of the island. Q nods and asked, you want me to go ahead and check it out? Naruto said, no, that's alright. I want to stretch my legs and you have a history of making a bad first impression. Q gave him a half glare and said, you're not going to let me ever live down the fact I attacked your village. Are you? Naruto said, nope, but if it helps any I can always get rid of that itch for you. Q smirked and said, maybe later Kit. As they walked along the beach toward where the smoke was coming from. When they got close to the smoke, Naruto whispered, cast an illusion over us as well so we can see who it is. Q growled and said, I can't unless you want me to release the one on the ship. A female voice said, who's there? Causing both Naruto and Q to flinch. Naruto frowned and leaned over and whispered to Q before he walked out of woods they were hiding in near the beach and saw someone standing there, and he blinked and blinked again as the figure said, Naruto. Is that you? Naruto looked around and said, what the hell are you doing here Ino, and how did you get here? In a confused voice, Ino screamed, Naruto, as she ran up to him and hugged him as she began to cry, shocking him. Naruto wrapped his arms around her and whispered in her ear, shish. Shh. It's going to be okay Ino, I'm here. Ino cried for several minutes holding on to him, and finally she went limp in his arms and he turned to Q, who came out of the woods on the other side of the clearing having circled around Ino campsite, and said, she's alone Kit. I don't detect anyone else's scent but hers. Naruto nods and said, go ahead and take her back to the dinghy and I will join you shortly. I need to get rid of all traces she was here so nobody can find out this is where to enter the Pokegirl world at. Q nods and grabs Ino and carried her away, and Naruto puts out the fire and then thought, well, here goes. As he flashed through some hand signs and said, sweeten, water bucket. As water formed over the fire and embers and put out the embers. Naruto then used his hands to dig a small pit and scooped all the wet wood from the fire into the pit and covered it back up with sand. He then placed his hands together and said, Kagebunshin no Jutsu. As 10 clones appeared and he said, take that stack of wood she has and scatter it in the woods randomly and then dispel yourselves. The clones got to work and he turned and headed back toward the dingy. When Ino awoke she found darkness around her and she slowly sat up and a wash rag fell off her eyes and she saw she was in a white room with a circle window and a door on the other side of the room with a small dresser and a bed in the room. She slowly got up and walked out of the room and saw she was in a hallway and there was daylight coming from the other end of the tunnel. She slowly walked toward the light and when she got out she saw the ocean around her and she was on a boat and a voice from above her said, "Hello." Ino jumped a little and looked up and paled and said, "You're." Kyubi said, "Just call me Q, okay, and don't worry. I won't attack you." Ino gulped and asked, "Where are we?" Q said, "You're currently on the Konoha, a yacht the kid had built for his trip to the Pokegirl world." Just then a splash sound was heard and Ino looked and saw Naruto climbing out of the water with only a pair of swim trunks on and he said, "Yo. Finally awake I see." As he pulled a stringer with several fish on it on board and he sat them down while he walked past Ino and put the spear he had in his other hand on the wall and fastened it down. Ino asked, "What am I doing here?" Naruto grabbed a knife out of a small cabinet and took the fish and sat down to start cleaning them and said, "Well. You saw me and ran into my arms crying and when I tried to comfort you, you passed out. That was yesterday and I had brought you on my yacht and gave you a room to rest until you awoke." Ino saw him cleaning the fish and she said, "But what about going to get those Pok thingamajigs you talked about?" Naruto said, "Oh, I am doing that right now. I just have to wait for the shield around the elemental nations to drop today and then I will be gone. What about you? What were you doing on Lost Island alone?" Ino looked down and said, Konoha fell from a surprise attack when you left." Naruto said, "Yeah, they nearly caught me as I was leaving but the Anbu took them out allowing me to escape." Ino looked up glaring and said, "So you left us without helping?" Naruto snorts and asked as he waved the knife in his hand, "What could I do, Ino? I had no weapons, most of my chakra was still sealed off thanks to that grass nin who attacked my team in the Forest of Death. I only had one jutsu that could have helped and that was Kagebunshin no Jutsu and even with as many as I can make I would have been able to only to distract them for a few minutes before they killed me." Q-chan up there was already out of energy from using that mass illusion showing the truth the Sandame hid. Against those 2 attacking villages and that sand demon I heard about from travelers I couldn't have done nothing but cost someone else their life trying to save me. As he went back to cleaning the fish, Ino looked down and sighed and said, "I guess you're right. Well, when it became clear we were going to lose Asuma-sensei told our team to leave and take as many survivors as we could. We were able to get a class of academy students out of the village and to the next town over where the people there agreed to hide them. Shikamaru, Choji and I then set up false trails leading away from the town we hid the children in and we took off running. Shikamaru claimed he knew someplace we could hide." As she began to cry again, Naruto flung his knife into the cutting board on top of the cabinet and he got up and pulled Ino into a hug and she cried for a few minutes and after wiping the tears away said, "A group of sound nins found us and Kabuto was with them. He was a traitor and we fought them and Shikamaru was able to capture them and I placed all the exploding tags on them as I had and Choji used his expansion jutsu to hold Kabuto and when Shikamaru released the jutsu I activated the tags and killed the men but Kabuto somehow was able to get free and he attacked Choji and when he turned to attack us Choji who he thought was dead pulled off one last attack by taking his family pills and crushed Kabuto to death by squeezing him in a bear hug. Shikamaru after seeing Choji die and the fact we couldn't do anything for him grabbed me and we left through the trees. We found a small fishing boat and we took it and started heading this way. About 3 days later on our way here the ship's radio picked up a broadcast. It was Kabuto. Somehow he still lived and he had a ship with some sound nins on it trying to catch us. When we got close to that island there Shikamaru threw me into the ocean and told me to stay on the island. He said it was where he was taking us to be safe. He then took the ship away from here heading south towards sea country if I had to guess. The ship with the sound nins didn't see me and they went right on by and I swam to the island and I was there until you showed up." Naruto sighed and said, "Good old Shikamaru. I thought he would want to come to the Pokegirl world since he only became a ninja to protect you and Choji. In fact, he was the only one who knew about Kyuubi being inside of me after I found out in our age group. Ino was wide-eyed and asked, why him? Naruto smiled a little and said, he's the same blood type as me. Even with Kyuubi I still needed blood transfusion a couple of times. One of them being the night we graduated. Mizuki-sensei hit me with a poisoned kunai and they had to flush my blood since Kyuubi was having to deal with the brain tumor I caused myself from releasing 1000 kage bunshin that night all at the same time and couldn't take care of the poison. He acted like he didn't know anything because it was too troublesome to explain to others. Ino frowned as she looked down and said, I see. So what are you going to do about me since you're leaving when the shield drops? Naruto said, it's up to you. I can either put you back on the island and leave you to live the rest of your life alone unless Shikamaru somehow escapes and comes back, or you could go with me and Q. Ino bit her lip and asked, what do I have to do if I come with you? Naruto looked at Q and said, well, I talked it over with Q and I decided when I get there I am going to become a tamer. Since I really don't know a lot about the world I am going to, I don't think I have any skills that I can use there to make a living outside of taming. Tamers go around the world entering their Pokegirls into battles and winning prize and becoming famous. If I can win enough matches I can become a master, and if that happens I will have enough money to settle down and raise a family. If you want you can be a traveling companion, so that way we both have a friendly face until you find something you're good at that you could do there. I won't lie, Ino. There are dangers there, but it's an adventure and nobody there will call me a freak or dead last or monster or demon. For me it's a fresh start at a new life. Ino looked down and said, I guess I will go with you. It's not like I have a lot of things here to hold me here. My dad's most likely dead along with everyone I know besides you. So when do we leave? Naruto looked at the sky and said, I would say in about 6 hours. It only opens at certain times each month and tonight is the time and day it will happen. Ino asked, how can you be sure? Q said, it only drops within 2 miles of this island for 2 hours on the nights of a full moon. Ino said, I see. I guess then you can't really get confused when it is then, can you? Q said, nope, not really, but now counting you I only know 3 humans who know of this, you, Shikamaru and the kid here. Ino asked, Kit? Q said, yes, it's a name of affection for a fox. Ino said, I see. Q cleared her throat and said, there is one thing you will have to know though, Ino. Since you're a normal human girl there is a problem you will have to hide from everyone. Human females when I was still there did not have periods since they could not have children. Pokegirls have heat, so there is not a need for female hygienic products. If people discovered that you need them and that you can have children without a very good explanation they will try to figure out how. That means lots and lots of tests. You sure you want to still come? Ino glared at Q and said, yes. I can deal with that problem. Q jumped off the roof of the yacht she was sitting on and landed and grabbed the fish Naruto had just finished and took them over to a skillet, and she held her hand under the pan and Ino was wide-eyed and Naruto said, you get used to it, Ino. As he went below deck. When he came back out he had a different pair of shorts and a t-shirt on and Q said, it's done. As she threw the fish into the air and used her tails to catch the fish on 3 plates before she handed one to Ino and Naruto. Ino said, thank you. As she began to eat. After they ate Ino asked, were you telling the truth about taming back in Konoha? Naruto nods and Q said, yes he was. Pokegirls are designed to be the perfect combination of deadly beast and wise sluts. Ino said, and you blunt about it. With red cheeks. Q said, sue me. I am over 125 years old and I don't look a day over 15 and as horny as a schoolgirl. Ino sighed as she looked at the sky and Naruto took her plate and Q and washed all 3 plates before he secured them in a cabinet so they don't fall out. Naruto then put his hands together and said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As 20 clones appeared and Naruto said, I want you all to check the ship out and prepare it to sail at a moment's notice. Move. As he turned and said, if you want to Ino, there's a shower down below. You only have 5 minutes of water before it shuts off, so do your hair first. If you wait about 3 minutes you will have another 5 minutes of water, but after that you can't have no more water for an hour while the ship filters more fresh water from the sea. Ino said, okay, thanks but, I don't have any cloths. Q said, just stick them outside the door and I can wash them in the ocean while you bath and then throw them in the dryer so you can have your cloths in about 20 minutes, so all you have to do is wait about 10 minutes for them. Ino nods and she heads down below deck, and as Q started to follow her, Naruto grabbed her shoulder and asked, "What are you up to, Q?" Q said, "Just female bonding. Relax," with a smile on her face as she walked below deck. Naruto sighed as he continued to prepare the ship. When Q got to the shower room, she saw that Ino cloths were outside the door and she grabbed them and thought, "Good thing I was inside you so long, Naruto." As she put her hand together and a second Q appeared and took the cloths back up to the deck to wash them. Naruto saw Q come back up and asked, "Everything alright?" Q said, "Yeah, don't worry about it," as she began to wash Ino cloths. Down below deck, the real Q silently opened the door to the shower room and slipped her cloths off. Ino was in the shower washing her hair when she felt someone begin to wash her back, and as she opened her mouth to scream, Q covered her mouth with her hand and whispered in her ear, "Relax," as she began to nibble on Ino's collarbone. Ino was first shocked, and then she felt Q's other hand slowly start to massage Ino right while two of Q's tail rub one of her while the other replaced Q's hand on the original as Q's hand slowly worked its way down to Ino's clit and began to slowly rub it in circles as Q continued to nibble on Ino's collarbone and covering Ino's mouth with her hand. Ino closed her eyes and thought, "Oh Kami, what is this feeling?" As she felt her legs getting weaker and she suddenly tensed as she felt herself climax and she screamed into Q's hand. As she finally came off her orgasm, Q removed her hand and captured Ino's lips and stepped out of the shower swaying her hips and said, "That's only a free sample of things you might receive on our adventure." As she quickly got dressed and left, and Ino started the shower again while standing on trembling legs. When she got out, she found her cloths outside the door and grabbed them before getting dressed. She came out on the deck and saw the first stars were starting to appear, and she saw Q sitting on Naruto's lap looking at the sky. Sighing, she went back below deck and went to sleep. When Ino awoke, she felt the room shifting and she quickly got out of bed and ran up to the deck of the ship as she screamed, "What's going on?" As she looked around and saw lightning flashing and wind blowing. She saw several Naruto moving around, and Q was standing near one Naruto who had the rudder wheel in his hand, and he was screaming, "Trim the sail. Secure all quarters, watch out for rocks, and for God's sake, secure the ramen." Ino blinked and blinked again as suddenly the ship lurched forward and she felt her stomach drop as they crested a huge wave. Using chakra to keep on the slippery deck, she ran to Naruto and Q and asked, "What's going on?" Q screamed through the howling wind, "A storm. The barrier was protecting us from it earlier, but when it dropped we got blindsided by it. Tie yourself to the ship with one of these ropes." As she showed a rope she had around her waist, and Ino saw one around Naruto, and she grabbed one and wrapped it around her stomach, and suddenly the ship lurched again and the Naruto beside her screamed, "Hard to port, balls to the wall," as he spun the wheel. Ino was shocked by Naruto and he winced and said, "Damn it, two of my clones fell overboard just now." As he quickly began to spin the wheel again, as Ino felt the ship moving upwards, and she looked to the left and right and saw they were climbing a huge wave. As they topped the wave, the ship lurched forward again, and Ino felt her stomach fall again and thought, "This is crazy. My life is in the hands of Naruto, the class idiot. How the hell does he even know how to run a ship like this, much less keep us from dying?" A clone screamed, "Hard to starboard." Another clone screamed, "No port." Naruto, hearing both scream, and tried to judge where to go as the waves crested the side of the ship and several clones were swept of the ship and dispelled. Naruto received the memories and thought, "Another ship." As he glanced at where his memories told him a clone saw a ship. For the next 2 hours Naruto kept his ship going in the storm, and soon most of the storm passed by, and Naruto sighed and said, "Secure the ship, begin checking for damage and prepare to drop anchor." A clone said, "Captain, the anchor release was damaged when we had to quickly pull it up." Naruto frowned and said, "Check for any way to fix it and don't let me find you in the food stash." And thought, "Damn clones." Ino, who was watching Naruto run around the ship, felt a hand on her shoulder and she tensed as Q leaned in and whispered, "Doesn't he just drive you wild with the way he can be so in charge and commanding? Makes me just want to. OWWWW." As she moaned into Ino's ear, who was beet red. Naruto asked, "What's going on, Q? Why is Ino beet red?" As he looked at both girls. Q said, "Just girl talk, right Ino?" Ino felt Q rub her free hand across Ino's butt and said, "Yeah, just girl talk. Eep." As Q pinched her butt. Naruto said, "Right, well both of you keep a lookout." One of my clones saw another ship in the storm and I don't know who it was while I check out the rest of the ship. As he moved around the ship check for damage. Once he was out of earshot, Ino jumped away and hissed, "What was that about?" Q smiled and said, "Just having fun." "Why?" Ino hissed, "Please stop. I'm not like that." Q said, "Please, we're women, we're all like that." Ino glared and Q pouted and said, "Fine, have it your way. I can always have fun with Naruto-kun." As she jumped up on the top of the yacht and sat down. Naruto dispelled all the clones about 5 minutes later and he held his head and said as he sat down beside Ino and Q looked down from where she was sitting, "Well, the wench to raise and lower the anchor is damaged, but I think with a little time I can raise and lower it manually." One of the starboard window's hatches broke 2 of the bolts holding it in place, so it will leak a little bit of water during storms but should not be any real problem until I can get us to a port and get some money to fix it. The rudder was also damaged a little, so I can't turn us as sharp to port until I can get the rudder fixed, but making a few large circles I should be able to get us to where we need to go. Other than that, we came out of that storm pretty good. Ino asked, "How did you become good enough to keep us from sinking during that storm, Naruto?" Naruto said, "While I was waiting on this ship to get built I had several fishermen take me and my clones on their boats while they went out fishing and I learned it all." "Why?" Ino just shook her head and said, "You surprise me is all." Naruto nods and said, "I'm not the #1 hyperactive knucklehead surprise tamer for nothing." Ino giggled and burst out laughing and said, "I can't believe you, Naruto. One minute you're all serious and the next you're cracking jokes." Naruto said, "Well, thank you, Ino. I try my best. Anyways, I am a little tired right now. I am going to catch a few hours of sleep since I've been up most of the night last night and yesterday. Wake me in about 5 hours and I will set course toward where we are heading." Ino asked, "Which is?" Q said, "Blue League. It's a couple days travel northeast of here. It don't matter if we drift for a few hours each day because even if we do, as long as we head northeast we will either run into Northern Africa or the Blue League, and if we hit Northern Africa it's just a little north of that." Ino looked up at Q and was wide-eyed and screamed, "Where's your cloths?" Q said, "What? I want a tan without any tan lines, so I am going to get it while we're out at sea. If you want you should do the same thing while Naruto-kun's asleep since you're such a prude." Ino glared and said, "I hate you." Q smirked and said, "That's not what you were thinking in the shower." Ino grabbed her head in frustration and huffed as she crossed her chest and looked away. When Naruto came back up on the deck after being asleep for a few hours, he saw Ino on the deck topless face down and she appeared to be asleep, and he saw Q also without any cloths, and Naruto shook his head as he went toward one of the cabinets that was built into the deck and pulled out a couple of tubes of sunscreen as he put his hands together and created 30 kage bunshin and 5 grabbed spears and slowly got in the water as 24 of them began moving around the ship getting ready to depart, while the last one and the real Naruto each took a tube of sunscreen, and the clone went over to Q and the real Naruto walked over and bent down and put some sunscreen in his hands to warm them up before he began to rub Ino back. Ino slowly awoke and moaned in pleasure as she looked through half-lidded eyes at Naruto still half asleep, and Naruto said, "Just relax. You fell asleep sunbathing and your back is starting to get burned, so I was rubbing a little suntan lotion on it." Ino moaned as Naruto's hands moved across her back and she closed her eyes and enjoyed it while Naruto kept his hands in safe areas, so she knew he was not taking advantage of her. A little bit later the clones returned and Naruto, having replaced the one Q destroyed when she woke up being frisky, saw them and he saw Ino was still asleep and said, "Well, I guess it's time to get started." As he stopped rubbing Q back and put the lotion away before cleaning his hands in the ocean water. Naruto then walked over and said, "Hey Ino, time to wake up." Ino groaned and Naruto said, "Come on Ino, and don't forget you're topless." Ino's eyes widened a moment and she looked around and she said, "Oh yeah, I remember now. Q talked me into sunbathing and you rubbed lotion on my back." Naruto nods and said, "If you don't mind, my clones caught some fish for us to eat and there are some vegetables in the fridge below deck if you want to clean them and cut the veggies and Q will cook them." Q asked, "How come you're making me keep cooking when we have a stove?" Naruto said, "Training Q. The longer you can do it the better you will be in battle. Now while you're both doing that I got my own training to do." As he jumped over the side of the yacht and Ino watched as he bit his thumb and wiped it on his arm, and she said, "That's one big sword." As she saw Zabuza's sword that appeared, Q said, "You just going to ogle him with your eyes, or are you going to start cleaning and getting the food ready to cook?" Ino said, "I was not ogling him. I was just," as she bit her lip and shut up as she grabbed the fish before heading below deck to find some veggies. Ino started to really look around the ship and thought, this thing is big enough for about 30 people, no probable. What the hell was that? As she dropped the fish in the sink and ran back up to the deck. When she got there, another explosion sounded and Naruto was panting, having just made it back to the yacht, as he screamed, "All hands on deck. Get the sails out, we're under attack," as he quickly sealed his sword back into his arm and ran toward the rudder control wheel. Ino screamed, "What's going on? Who's attacking us?" Q looked at the ship that was getting closer and said, "Pirates." Naruto glanced back and thought, damn it, I don't think we can outrun them, and I seriously doubt we can outfight them. As the Cage Bunshin ran around raising the sails and Naruto began to steer the ship away from the directions the cannons had blasted on the left side of the ship. Just then another blast was heard and then an explosion a few seconds later. Ino screamed as she covered her head and Naruto screamed, "Shut up, Ino, and look for weapons down below to defend yourself, you also, Q." As he spun the wheel hard, making the ship turn, and began running straight east. The pirate ship began to turn as well, except they were running northeast while Naruto was running straight east. Naruto frowned as he looked at the sails and thought, damn, they tricked me into running against the wind. As he quickly began to turn the ship again, but it was much harder this time, and when he got the ship pointing northwest, they caught the wind and began to pull away from the pirate ship a little, but the pirate ship launched another cannonball that blasted in front of the yacht, and Naruto thought, they realized that I caught their plan and now they want to make me change back. As the pirate ship began to turn again and as they caught the wind, Naruto saw they began to quickly catch up. About 30 minutes later, Naruto was glaring at the pirate ship that was only 100 yards behind them, and Ino asked in a scared voice, "What are we going to do?" Naruto said, "Q, your job is to protect Ino and try to outrun them." Ino turned and looked at Naruto and asked, "What are you going to do?" In a scared voice, Naruto unsealed his sword and said, "I won't let those precious to me get hurt, Ino. That's my Nindo." As he jumped off the deck of the yacht and began running across the water toward the pirate ship, and as he got to it he ran up the side of it. Ino thought, no, not another one. First Shikamaru and now Naruto. As she burst into tears. When Naruto jumped over the rail of the pirate ship, he saw nearly 50 Pokegirls on the ship, and he saw several different type of Pokegirls. Some looked mostly human and others didn't, and he then saw one who was at the ship rudder control wheel, and she had a cloak and a captain hat on, and he said, "Why did you attack my ship?" All the Pokegirls, including the ones who were too busy before to notice him, were drawn by his shout. The one in the captain hat said, well, what do we have here? A very interesting little man. I am Captain Slutster and I attacked your ship because A, I wanted to, and B, because I can. Naruto snarled and said, "Listen, bitch. I don't care who you are, and personally I don't care, but you put my precious people in danger and I won't stand for it." As he held his sword in front of him, making all the Pokegirls laugh at him. Naruto frowned, and one Pokegirl who looked like a track runner, but she had on a low-cut shirt and tight shorts with a bandana on her head, and she said, "Well, Captain, this male has a lot of balls to come up here acting all badass when it's easy to see he can't even hold that big meat cleaver correctly." Slutster said, "I can see that, Nina, as can any of the others here. We wasted all those cannonballs on him. What a disappointment." Naruto said, "You think you're so hot? Try this on." As he stabbed the sword in the deck and put his hands together and said, "Taju Cage Bunshin no Jutsu." And suddenly 300 Cage Bunshin appeared, making everyone wide-eyed, and Naruto screamed, "Charge!" As he pulled the sword out of the deck and charged into battle, swinging it left and right like an idiot. Slutster said, "Buttoneers, charge the idiot with the sword. He's the original. Amachokes, get us going after his ship that is escaping. The rest of you herd his clones together and destroy them. He's using ninjutsu against us." As each of the Pokegirls got together to attack Naruto and his clones, an explosion was heard on the side of the ship, drawing everyone's attention, and Slutster looked over the rail and saw one Naruto placing exploding tags on the side of the ship and saw a hole in it that was already filling up with water. Slutster screamed, "Amachokes, forget the ship, prepare rip lines and get the scurvy dog off the side of the ship before he sinks us." Just then another explosion was heard from the side and Slutster looked and saw a second hole that was filling up with water slowly and the Naruto below went up in smoke. Just then a shout of, "Captain, look out!" made Slutster turn and saw Naruto coming down from above with his fist cocked back ready to punch her and she quickly pulled her rapier and stabbed it into the stomach of Naruto who smirked and said, "Boom," as he exploded sending her flying back. Just then several other explosions happened on the deck destroying all the cage bunshin and sending Pokegirls flying in every direction. The real Naruto who was fighting with Zabuza's sword jumped back onto the mast of the ship and he channeled chakra into the sword causing it to glow blue a little and he swung with all his strength slicing through the mast causing the sails to fall into the sea. Naruto saw the shocked looks on all the Pokegirls' faces and he ran quickly while everyone was distracted and jumped off the side of the ship and began to run across the water after he landed toward the Konoha which had gotten about a mile away already. As he got to the yacht he saw the crying Ino and he asked, "Why are you crying, Ino?" Making her look up in shock and she screamed, "Naruto." As she wrapped her arms around him and Q said, "Hey Kit, I need some help up here." Naruto hugged Ino tight a moment and said, "I need you to let me go so I can get us out of here." Ino sniffed and let go of him and Naruto went to the rudder control wheel and quickly spun the wheel until the ship was going northeast. As Naruto was navigating the yacht he glanced around and thought, "Why does it feel like there's someone else here?" When a voice said, "Not a bad ship, not as good as the last one I was on but she's going to the bottom of the sea now." Making Naruto and both girls look and see a girl standing on the sail arm and Naruto said, "You're Nina, from the pirate ship." Nina smiles and said, "That's right Captain Baka. What kind of captain leaves his ship, charges onto an enemy ship, takes on the entire crew and walks away without a single scratch?" Ino asked, "What are you?" Nina looked at Ino and then at Naruto and then at Q and she then looks around the ship again and said, "Where are you three from?" Naruto said, "Around. Now answer my question. What are you doing on my ship?" Nina said, "Oh that. I'm not like those simple-minded buttoneers or the she-captain you just made a fool out of and worship the ship like it's part of my family. I'm a pirate. When you showed how foolish Captain Slutster was by underestimating you I was surprised. When you actually sank her ship I decided since all those other girls are as good as dead I would find a new captain to follow and you proved yourself to be a... well you're an idiot but a powerful idiot and one who claims he's willing to do anything to protect his precious people so here I am. First mate Nina reporting for duty Captain Baka." Naruto's sweat dropped as Ino giggled a little and Q looked at Nina and asked, "So you wish to join his harem huh?" Nina said, "Sure. He's good looking and has a wild side that is unpredictable from what I saw so far and the fact he can walk on water like I can is something I respect greatly so what do you say Captain?" Naruto looked at her in the eyes and after several moments asked, "Why should I trust you not to just abandon me and my companions or try to take over the ship?" Nina shrugged and said, "That's your call Captain Baka but if you know anything about the sea life you know that I have no crew anymore and even if I do know how to operate this ship I don't have anywhere else to go. I am a follower and always will be. Once I join up with someone I go with them until they die and then I find someone else to follow. You will make my third captain. My first was a little over a year ago when my master ship was attacked by Captain Slutster and after my master was dead I joined Captain Slutster and now that she went down with her ship I will follow you until either you die or I do. By the way, who's the human chick? You know how valuable she is. Especially one who is not sterile." Making Naruto, Ino and Q all three flinch. Ino asked, "What are you talking about?" Nina pointed to Ino pants and said, "You're showing through." As Ino turned beet red as Naruto and Q looked at her and Ino quickly ran below deck trying to hide her embarrassment and Naruto glared at Nina and asked, "Was that necessary?" Nina said, "Probably not Captain Baka but if I am going to be a member of this crew then I need to look out for the rest of my crew. I take it you're the alpha." Q said, "Yes I am and you and I will have a talk later about proper behavior for this harem." As she glared at Nina. Naruto said, "I haven't agreed to anything." Q said, "Let it go Kit. I may not know a lot about ship harlots like this girl." As Nina said, "Hey. I am no harlot." Q ignored her and said, "But I do know that everything she has said has been true so far." Naruto was silent for a few minutes and said, "Fine but there are some rules you have to follow. Number 1. You do anything to endanger one of my precious people and I will kill you. 2. You will not now or ever tell anyone about Ino's situation. I will not have her hurt by some idiot because of the way she was born. 3. You will follow my orders, and if I am not available then Q here and then Ino. Nina said, I have a problem with that. I will follow you as my new master, and I will follow the Kyuubi here as she is your alpha, but I will not follow the human unless she is your wife and my co-master. I may be a follower, but I am no submissive bitch. Naruto glared for several seconds and said, fine, but if you step out of line one time you won't live to regret it. 4. You will not tell anyone mine, Ino, or Q secrets. Nina nods and Naruto said, we'll tell Ino you're sorry for embarrassing her just now. Nina said, now here are my terms. 1. Watching you swing that slab of steel around makes me sick. I will not follow a captain who can't use a sword properly. Either learn on your own or let me teach you how to use it properly. 2. You make sure each girl in the harem can pull her own weight. A ship can't survive without a good captain and a strong crew behind him. 3. When it comes to the harem Q, there is the alpha, but when we are out to sea I am your first mate when it comes to operating this ship. You may have survived that squall that came through here last night, but that's nothing compared to some of the storms you will encounter on the sea. Greenhorn. Naruto asked, Greenhorn? Nina said, yes, Greenhorn. You got some skills in operating a ship, but I already saw how you got a damaged anchor. You're taking on water in the engine room, though it's only a small crack so far, and your mast is not supported to handle heavy winds that come with the storms in this area. You need some more securing lines or it's as good as gone. I don't know how the hell you got this ship in these waters, but it's a damn miracle. Your rudder control is also messed up. Naruto asked, how do you know all that already? Nina said, it's part of my job. When I first board any ship I always check its seaworthiness, and so a ship this small only took about 5 minutes of time, which is how long it took you to comfort the blonde and take control of your ship. Naruto frowned and asked, is that all? Nina said, yes. Those are my demands and what I have observed. Naruto said, fine, once you tell Ino you're sorry, welcome aboard. Nina jumped down and walked below the deck to where the cabin rooms were, and she quickly found Ino in her room crying, and Nina frowned and said, look. I am sorry for what embarrassing you, but I thought you should know. I like to joke around to make everyone happy, and I don't know really anything about human females except they are always found sterile, and when I saw that as she was slapped across the face by a red-face Ino. Ino said, do you know how embarrassing that was for me? I have known Naruto for years now, and in one moment you destroyed every ounce of respect he has for me. Nina snorts and said, get over yourself, princess. If he was upset about you having that trouble, what will he do for a Pokegirl when she's needing taming? It's as natural as breathing. Ino said, maybe for this fucked up world, but where I came from women have morals and values and modesty. Maybe you're a fuck toy, but I sure as hell am not. Nina said, whatever, as she turned and walked away, leaving a fuming Ino. When she got to the deck again, she saw Naruto and his clones working around the ship, and she saw Naruto having trouble with the rudder control and said, it's just going to get worse the longer it goes until it either is repaired or breaks. Naruto frowned and asked, then what do you suggest? I am not real good at fixing things, and in case you haven't noticed, we're in the middle of the ocean. Nina snorts and said, landlover. Got to love them. Look, there's an island about 4 hours south of here. It's where Slutster base was, so there is plenty of supplies there to fix the ship along with some treasure as well as my pokeball. If you want I take us there, Captain. Naruto frowned a moment and said, very well, but if this is a trap you will pay. Nina said, you're not very trusting, are you? Naruto just jumped up on the roof as Nina took control of the rudder wheel, and he sat down to watch her as she began to order the clones who Naruto had henge into Pokegirls that he had seen on the pirate ship. About 5 hours later, Naruto saw an island appear in the distance, and he said, well, it took longer than you said, but you were right. Nina said, don't blame me, the wind change. We could have used the motor, you know. Naruto bit his lip and said, I don't want to use it unless we have no choice, since I don't know how fast the motors will go through the fuel on board I have. Nina said, I didn't see any fuel. Naruto said, it's there, don't worry, secret compartment. As he glanced at Q. Ino was still down in her cabin. Nina asked, what are your orders, Captain? Naruto asked, are there any guards on the island we need to know about? Nina frowned and said, just one, but she won't come out until nighttime and we have to be indoors by then. Naruto saw how she fidgeted and asked, why? Nina said, just trust me. This island may have been our base, but someone else had the island before we did. Naruto said, alright, I trust you, for now. Is there any way to dock so we can try to repair the ship? Nina said, yeah, I can put us in the dry dock for now. As she navigated the ship and Naruto soon saw a pier and a ramp with rollers built into it. When they got to the ramp with rollers on it, Nina jumped off and ran up the ramp and came running back down with a rope and a hook, and she hooked it on the front of the yacht and said, secure the sails and hold on. As she ran back up the ramp out of sight, Q said, impressive girl you got there Naruto-kun. So how long you going to do the whole untrusting master act? Naruto frowned and said, I don't trust her. At least not completely, but I am beginning to. She hasn't done anything to make me doubt her, yet. Ino's voice asked, why would you doubt her? As Naruto turned at the sound of her voice and saw her with a blue shirt he recognized from his cloths and her shirt she had on wrapped around her waist covering her shorts. Naruto asked, are you okay? As the boat shifts and they all see the boat is being pulled up the ramp slowly. Ino bit her lip and nods, and Naruto asked, did Nina tell you she was sorry? Ino nods and said, yeah. Naruto said, good. Is there anything I can do? Making Ino flush red with embarrassment, and Naruto saw this and quickly waved his hand and said, not like that. I mean to make you more comfortable. I remember Kurenai-sensei telling me that when women are having their time, they usually don't feel good and have really bad mood swings with their feet hurting along with cramps. I just wanted to ask if there was anything I could do to make you comfortable. Ino's cheeks lost their redness and she said, no, I am fine, but why did Kurenai-sensei tell you about all that? Naruto shifted his feet a little and said, well, she sort of gave me the talk and also was the one who gave me the ideal for my why no jutsu. Ino asked, why? Naruto said, the Hokage asked her to so I would learn proper respect for women instead of from a pervert like most men. Ino nods and Q said, well, looks like this is the end of the ride. Making both blondes look and see they are off the ramp and see Nina walking back toward them. Naruto said, well, what do you suggest now, Nina? Nina said, well, that's simple. All hands help fix the ship. Q said, well, almost none of us have any actual repairing ship skills, so you're going to have to help us. Nina nods and said, alright. I would suggest that Ino here go to that warehouse over there and look for cables that we can connect to the mast to help support it, and you captain can go and find some sealing tar in the warehouse so we can fix that leak in not only the engine room but also in that one cabin room that you told me about. Naruto nods and both him and Ino run off, and after they were gone Q moved as fast as she could and slammed Nina against the cabin wall with one arm across both Nina's arms and the other hand around Nina's neck, and her eyes changed red and said, now listen here, you little worm. You may think I am just some little Kyuubi, but I am far from it. Do you know the history of this world? Do you remember the massacre of Machine Gun Bay? Nina swallowed and said, yeah, every sailor knows about that. Q said, good, that day my new master wanted to test my powers to see if I was truly as strong as I claimed. I was the legendary Kyuubi no Kitsune that was over 200 feet tall that destroyed that village. Making Nina's eyes wide as she trembled a little in fear. Q saw this and smirked and said, now that I have your attention, know this. I may not still be as strong as I once was, but I am still powerful enough to destroy you. The kid, as I call him, is Naruto Uzumaki. He is the only human I will ever respect ever again, because his home village did everything possible to destroy him because his own father sealed me into him the day we was born. You know the treatment us Pokegirls can receive from humans. The worst that they could do to us is what a good day to him was. He knows suffering and pain and has only wanted happiness. He will fight to the death for those he consider precious. He may be an idiot at times because of his treatment. They thought if they couldn't kill him, then making him weak and stupid would be just as good, but he is also very smart as well. You want him to be smarter, train him, teach him, make him smarter. I can see you like to play around with insults to authorities, and the kid does as well. Hell, even I do that, but know this. You ever intentionally hurt him or his precious people or insult him on purpose, and what I did to that village will look like a miracle from Kami compared to what will happen to you. Do you understand me? Nina could only nod as she was scared out of her mind, and Q jumped back smiling innocently and said, by the way, you have a nice body. I can't wait to see how nimble you are. I will be going to look for us some food to eat since I've been eating fish for a while. CYA. as she jumped off the boat and ran into the woods nearby. Nina swallowed and thought, my god. If she's telling the truth, I just had a brush with death. She's a legendary Pokegirl and she follows this human male. He's just got a lot more interesting. No wonder he has trust issues. Inside the warehouse, Ino was looking around for cables and thought, man, this place is scary, but there is so much stuff here, how can you find anything in here? As she looked around, Naruto looked around and thought, man, look at all this junk. As he looked at crates and boxes of different, and he saw one that said Pokédex, and he blinked and walked over to it and lifted the lid on the crate and saw hundreds of red little devices, and he thought, what are these things? Naruto took one out and opened it and read, welcome and thank you for using the Pokédex. Please type in your name. Naruto Uzumaki. Age, 14. Country of origins, Fire Country. Home village, Konoha. Please scan your Pokegirls. Naruto blinked and walked back outside the warehouse and walked toward the yacht and said, hey Q, Nina, come out here a moment. Nina walked out and asked, what do you need, Captain? Naruto said, I found this inside the warehouse and it told me to scan you. Nina said, oh, you found the Pokédex. I'm surprised you don't already have one. Sure, just point it at me and it will tell you about me. Naruto pointed it at her and it clicked and read, Piratit, the swashbuckling Pokegirl. Type, very near human. Element, fighting. Frequency, rare. Diet, human diet. Role, front-line fighter, second in command. Libido, average to high. Strong versus bug, dark, normal, rock, steel, water. Weak versus electric, flying, psychic. Attacks, slash, cut, evade, focus, parry, deflect, counter, quick hit, balancing water. Enhancements. Enhanced speed, x3, enhanced reflexes, x3, enhanced toughness, x2, sword proficiency and knowledge of sword techniques. Evolves. None known. Evolves from Slicer, Waterstone. The Piratit is a cause for much confusion among researchers. They are a pirate-like Pokegirl completely unrelated to the Buttoneer and she Captain, instead evolving from the Slicer. They also evolve using an elemental stone, but do not gain the element of that stone. They can, however, temporarily gain the water element through their balancing water technique. Piratits look like normal, if athletic, humans with a preference for clothing similar to that of a she-captain. Piratits, however, usually prefer a bandana to a hat, and tend to favor low-cut shirts, to better show off their generous chests. C cup. Sometimes CC. Which somehow never get in her way during combat. Piratits are excellent sword fighters, retaining any techniques learned as slicers, and learn new techniques fairly quickly. They tend to rely on their speed and agility in combat, avoiding blows and taunting their opponents into rash, easy to counter attacks, similar to an Amazon Kapora. Against stronger opponents, they use a combination of focus and quick hit for a flurry of powerful blows. Compared to Buttoneers and she-captains, Piratits are usually a middle ground. They tend to be more powerful than Buttoneers, but lack the she-captain's broad range of abilities. They do, however, lack both the Buttoneers' refusal to travel on dry land, and the she-captain's nearly murderous need to be alpha. Rarely found feral, they typically travel on ships crewed by Buttoneers, often as a first mate to a she-captain, who are respected for their strength. Piratits are, however, notably immune to the she-captain's commanding ability. Piratits vary in personality, though they tend to be confident. They also share a common mischievous streak, and enjoy agitating authority figures, especially harem alphas, or she-captains. They are quick to point out failures, and will eagerly tease a less endowed leader with sunken chest jokes. Why she-captains put up with it is a mystery, and many Piratits have been surprised when an alpha becomes angry with them over their teasing. They rarely mean any harm, and will stand strongly by a capable alpha. Barring conflict with an alpha, Piratits work well in harems, and are often favored by tamers over the other pirate Pokegirls as a result. Question. Is this Pokegirl in your harem? If so, what is her name? Nina. The Pokédex beeped a couple of seconds and then Naruto read. Tamer info. Naruto Uzumaki. Age 14. Konoha, Fire Country. Blood gift, curse. Kitsune senses, advance healing. Pokegirls. Nina, Piratit, the swashbuckling Pokegirl. Level 27. Type very near human. Element fighting. Frequency rare. Diet human diet. Role front-line fighter, second in command. Libido average to high. Strong versus bug, dark, normal, rock, steel, water. Weak versus electric, flying, psychic. Attacks slash, cut, evade, focus, parry, deflect, counter, quick hit, balancing water. Enhancements enhanced speed, x3, enhanced reflexes, x3, enhanced toughness, x2, sword proficiency and knowledge of sword techniques. Nina frowned and said, I'm only at level 27, that bites. I thought I was stronger than that. Naruto asked, is that good or bad? Nina looked at Naruto and said, well, I suppose it's average. 100 is as high as we usually go unless we go legendary, which is next to impossible. Naruto nods and asked, where's Q? Nina said, she went to get something for us to eat. Naruto nods and said, so what exactly does this do? I don't really understand it. Nina frowned and said, it scans every Pokegirl you encounter, in what area, as well as informing you about the Pokegirl so you can fight them effectively, and keeps track of your own Pokegirl progress as well as your battles, keeping track of your gym badges and other special recognition you gain as a tamer. Naruto nods and said, well, that's cool. I guess I better get back to finding that tar. As he turned and walked back to the warehouse. When he got there, he looked around and saw the crate he got the Pokédex from, and he put the lid back on it, and then he walked down the aisle some and saw another crate labeled Pokeballs. Naruto walked over and he heard a beeping noise, and he pulled out his new Pokédex and opened it and read. Notice, reminder to all tamers, you may only keep up to 6 Pokeballs unless you pass the Masters or Breeder test. Naruto frowned and thought, I guess these Pokédex must have scanned all the Pokeballs in this crate to somehow. At least I know I can grab some while here. As he opened the crate and saw lots of Pokeballs, all like the one he had on his waist that once held Kyuubi, so he grabbed 5 more and placed them on his belt and put the lid back on the crate. He began to look around the warehouse and thought, there's a lot of things here we could use to survive. I guess I could seal some of this so we can bring it and either sell it or use them. As he came across a barrel of sealing tar, and he began slowly rolling it out toward the yacht. When he got there, he saw Nina working on the rudder and Q was cooking some rabbits she caught, and Naruto looked around and asked, where's Ino? Both Nina and Q looked at each other, and Nina said, she never came back from the warehouse. Naruto nods and said, here's the tar. I'm going to look for her. As he turned and ran back toward the warehouse. When he entered it, he yelled, Ino, you in here, Ino? As he began to look around. As he was walking, he heard a gasping noise and he turned toward it and saw something lying on the ground. Naruto slowly walked over, and when he got closer his eyes widened and screamed, Ino. As he quickly ran to her side and noticed blood on her neck, and he quickly ripped a piece of his shirt and held it to her neck and said, hold on, Ino. As he looked around and quickly picked her up bridal style and ran out of the warehouse toward the yacht. When he got there, he screamed, help. As he jumped from the ground onto the deck and quickly ran toward one of the cabins. Nina and Q, who heard his scream, quickly followed, and Q asked, what's wrong, Kit? In a worried voice. Naruto said, it's Ino. She's been attacked. Get the first aid kit, Q and Nina, keep an eye out for anything. Nina said, right, Captain. As she turned and went back to the deck and thought, but if she's been attacked by what I think she has, then there is not much that can be done for her. Q came back with the first aid kit, and she moved over to Naruto and Ino and she said, let me see what I can do for her. As she moved to beside Ino and moved the rag and saw 2 bite wounds on the side of her neck, and she frowned and asked, did you see what attacked her? Naruto said, no, I just found her laying like this with blood on her neck. As he looked worriedly at Ino, Q frowned and cleaned the bite and put a bandage on her neck and said, that's about all I can do for her unless we know what attacked her and get to proper medical attention. Naruto said, Q, you stay here and guard Ino. As he turned and walked up to the deck and saw Nina, and his eyes narrowed and walked over and did a leg sweep, making Nina fall, not expecting to be attacked, and he placed his knee on her neck as his eyes glowed red and said, you know what attacked her, don't you? Nina, feeling the ki coming off of Naruto, thought, it's just like Q. Scared and said, yes. Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked, and what is it? As he applied more pressure to Nina's neck. Nina coughed and said, "A vampire. It's what I warned you about before we came here, though it usually only comes out at night." Naruto stepped off of her and asked, "What exactly is a vampire?" Nina rubbed her neck and said, "Look it up on your Pokédex." Naruto frowned and pulled out his Pokédex and it came on and Nina said, "Search, vampire." The Pokédex beeped and Naruto read, "Vampire, the blood-sucking Pokegirl. Type: very near human. Element: ghost, magic. Frequency: rare. Diet: blood. Role: hunters. Libido: high. Strong versus bug, fighting, ground, ghost, magic, plant, poison, psychic, infernal. Weak versus dark, electric, ice, celestial, solar-based attacks. Attacks: vampire bite, drain, invis, night shade, phase, illusion, fear aura, mega drain, dark shield, cocoon of darkness, dark mist, dark matter, blood blade, blood bullets, vampiric touch, ghost blade. Enhancements: enhanced speed, x4, enhanced strength, x4, enhanced endurance, x4, enhanced durability, x4, enhanced healing, x3, darkness affinity, constant ashen wings and dark goggles effect, light transformation and illusionary capabilities. Evolves: Lucarda, Zalera's Blessing, Starlady, Dawn Stone. Evolves from humans, Dark-type Pokegirls or Amazon-type Pokegirls, infected through bite, Psyvamp, Dusk Stone. Bounty, for confirmed kill, 200,000 SLC, applies to ferals only. Bounty, for reporting sighting and getting out alive, 57,000 SLC, applies to ferals only. Bounty, for successful capture and taming, 57,500 SLC, applies to ferals only. Recommendation: if you see one, before anything is done, be certain that the vampire is indeed a feral one. Observe it, trying if at all possible to stay out of its way. The difference between a feral vampire and a tamed vampire is very subtle. If the vampire seems even remotely animalistic in nature, then evacuate immediately, making sure to have a fighting-type Pokegirl at the ready if you are spotted. If you are spotted, be prepared to kill the vampire as its bite is potentially lethal and has the potential to infect you or your Pokegirls, resulting in a transformation into a vampire. Applies to ferals only. Vampires were one of the few species of non-infernals that campaigned with the legions of terror during the war. Their presence alone was enough to inspire fear in the populace, and since Tsukubi's research had yielded that humans could be converted to vampires and forced into service with the Legion, they were considered to be even more terrifying. Human in appearance, save for their pale skin and more pointed than normal canine teeth, they were easily capable of blending in with humanity. While sunlight didn't kill them, as it normally would with vampires in the old stories, they were weakened severely by the sun and generally stayed inactive until nighttime. This made it easier to catch and tame vampires. However, doing so guarantees that the vampire will never have any respect for you. Catching a feral vampire at night, and especially at a full moon, when their powers are at their strongest, and you guarantee a loyal, cooperative vampire in your harem. Vampires have a variety of fearsome abilities. They can transform into pre-Tsukubi creatures such as rats or bats, more powerful vampires being able to change into swarms of these creatures. They can also transform into mist for silent movement through an area, remaining aware of their entire surroundings when transformed and capable of reforming at any time. They can pass through walls and turn invisible, and manipulate dark energy to their own ends. They are fierce, savage fighters when feral, losing all of their complex abilities except for much lessened invisibility powers and natural flight. When tame, their tactics change, as they tend to favor a combination of intimidation and evasive tactics, using illusions and trickery to basically terrify the opponent into defeating themselves. They can turn up to one other person invisible as well as phase them through a wall, but only if they are completely tangible and/or visible before grabbing someone and using the ability. Having a vampire in your harem is not recommended, but doing so shows that you have the patience, diligence, and willingness to do what is necessary for your girls to be happy. Vampires need only one thing to survive: blood. If a tamer is willing to let their vampire feed from them, just enough for the vampire's needs to suffice, then they guarantee loyalty from their vampire. It's best to let them stay in their Pokeball until nighttime, as they become severely weak during the day and cannot take pleasure from any sort of physical act, making taming useless. In official Pokegirl battles, it is forbidden to use solar attacks on them, as it is potentially fatal to them. Vampires can secrete a chemical substance through the hollow canines they use to feed. This chemical is what triggers the change into a vampire. Males turn female before their transformation. To tell the difference from a normal feeding bite and an infected bite, looking for a greenish-yellow foam around the wound. A vampiric infection can be treated and cured within 7 days of the bite via white magic and careful medical treatment, but by the 8th day, the effects are irreversible. Due to the nature of how vampires are formed, no cases of threshold have been recorded, or are believed to be even possible. Note that ferals are far more dangerous to travelers than tame vampires. Tame vampires have a strong sense of dignity and are far more likely to be polite to people they meet. They will also never drink more than they need to survive. Ferals are savage, and will drink even when they aren't thirsty. They also have less control over their bodies and are far more likely to accidentally infect someone with a vampiric transformation virus. Feral vampires also command feral vampira, a breed that tame vampires look down on with derision and amusement, as they are moderately useful to their purposes. Naruto frowned and he turned to Nina and asked, "We need to get her to medical attention now. Is the ship ready?" Nina said, "It can be ready in a few hours but." Naruto glared and said, "But." Nina swallowed and said, "It's nearly 6 days to the nearest medical facility that I know of and I don't know if they can help her there or not. Not many specialize in healing from vampire bites since they're not very common." Naruto glared and put his hands together and said, "Toju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." As 500 Kage Bunshin appeared and Naruto screamed, "All of you follow Nina orders and get this ship ready ASAP, Ino is in danger." As he turned toward Nina and said, "Just get us there. I don't care how." As he turned and walked back below deck. When he got there, Q had a rag on Ino's head and Naruto sat down holding Ino's hand. A few hours later Nina came down below and saw Naruto holding Ino's hand and said, "We're ready to cast of captain." Naruto nods and leans over and kisses Ino's forehead and said, "Hold on Ino. I'll get you help. It's a promise." As he turned and walked past Nina and he passed by a room and blinked and backed up and thought, "So some of my clones got all that stuff in the warehouse since all those are now being used." As he continued on up to the bridge and he said, "Cast off." Nina ran to the front of the yacht and cut the cable that pulled them up the ramp and she said, "Push." As several Kage Bunshin who began to push the yacht toward the ramp and once they hit the slope the yacht quickly slid into the water. Naruto cranked the engines and had the yacht go in reverse until they got into the cove and he yelled, "Raise sails, secure all hatches. We got to hurry." As his Kage Bunshin and Nina began to work on getting the ship out to sea. Naruto thought, "Please hold on Ino. You're all I have left of my home." Once the Konoha was out to sea the clones on the island turned to each other and one asked, "What now?" Another one said, "I don't know." Another said, "I say we find that vampire thing and kick her ass." Each of the clones looked at each other and they screamed, "Yeah." As they all took off in every direction looking for the vampire. On the ship Naruto looked like a man possessed with his knuckles white from squeezing the rudder wheel so tightly. Nina who was beside him thought, "He's like a different person now." As her thoughts were interrupted by Naruto who said, "Report on heading." Nina looked down and said, "We're right on course Captain." Naruto said, "Good. Let me know if we move off course for an instant. Time is of the essence." Nina swallowed and said, "Yes Captain." As she looked at the navigational compass. A few hours later back on the island one of the clones found a cave and frowned and thought, "If I was a creature who mostly only came out at night because sunlight weakens me then I would." As all thought left him as a blade of blood came out of the cave and through its body destroying it. All across the island the Kage Bunshin all turned toward the direction of the cave and began moving quickly toward it. On the boat Naruto bit his lip and turned to Nina and asked, "How strong is that vampire Nina?" Nina said, "I don't know. It only showed up at night whenever it did show up and was only reported when we left a few behind to work on something at the base because it did not like large groups." Naruto thought and said, "I see. It stayed in its cave mostly then." Nina asked, "How do you know about the cave?" Naruto frowned and said, because my cage bunchen I left on the island have been hunting it and one was destroyed outside of the cave by something that looked like a blade of blood. Nina asked, but how do you know that? Naruto said, anything they learn, I learn when they are destroyed. How's our heading? Nina looked and said, turn 1 degree north captain, there. As Naruto turned the wheel a little. Back on the island all the cage bunchen gathered outside the cave and one said, let's get her. As he charged into the cave only to be destroyed like that last one was. An evil-sounding voice asked, why are you here? From inside the cave, a clone said, to get revenge for what you did to Ino. The voice said, ah yes, the blonde. Her blood was delicious, clean and pure, Naruto Uzumaki. Making each of the clones flinch. One asked, how do you know our name? The voice said, because the girl knew your name. Now be gone you baka before I come out and destroy you. You don't know what I am or what I can do. One clone said, not going to happen. As he began making hand signs and ran into the cave and as the blade of blood hit him he exploded. A scream was heard from inside the cave and another clone began making hand signs before he also ran into the cave and made it inside halfway before it was also destroyed and exploded. The voice screamed again and began to laugh and said, I will get you. As the cave entrance collapsed from the explosions, the remaining clones looked at each other and one asked, do you think we got her? Just then one of the clones went up in smoke and then another. As the memories of the clones hit the others they all thought, must be the invisibility thing. As one looked around and said, hey she's BLE. As it went up in smoke and each of the clones thought, so she's bleeding huh? They each closed their eyes and began to sniff and as one went up in smoke again another one appeared where it was and threw a punch. It connected and the clone opened its eyes and saw a shimmer and he quickly threw a kick at the shimmer and a pale hand grabbed his leg and slung him over its head and into the ground destroying it but because of its memories each of the other clones looked and saw the now revealed 6 feet tall black hair vampire with a black looking cloak and they all charged at the vampire who turned into a black mist and each of the punches went through it and the mist began to move away quickly but one of the clones jumped from tree to tree and got in front of it and flashed through hand signs and exploded. The mist quickly formed into the vampire again and the other clones seeing her quickly attacked again but only managed to get a couple of punches before it phased into the ground bleeding. All of the clones looked at each other and one said, search the island. As he jumped away. When night fell all the clones were still searching the island but the vampire soon began to hunt them one by one destroying them. On the boat Naruto frowned and thought, damn. That vampire is tougher than I thought and she's killing my clones before they even know she's there. As dawn rose the next morning Naruto felt his eyelids getting heavy and Nina came out from below deck and said, Captain, let me take over now. You need some sleep. Naruto glared at her in his half-daze and said, I don't need any sleep. Nina sighed and said, forgive me. As she took the spot beside Naruto who turned back to looking at the compass and then moving the wheel a little. Nina waited until he was done before she hit him in the neck and Naruto fell to the ground passed out. Nina picked him up and carried him below and Q saw them pass and got up and asked, what happened? Nina turned and said, Captain needs some sleep if he's going to keep us moving later so since I slept last night I will take over now and I knocked him out since he refused to listen. Q glared and said, fine but that better be all. Nina said, don't worry Q. I won't betray you or the captain. As she turned and took Naruto to his room and set him on the bed. After that she turned and left to pilot the ship. Q after she went back by went to Naruto and checked him and Naruto groaned and asked, what happened as Q shook him awake. Q said, relax kid. You were being stubborn again and Nina had to knock you out so you can save Ino. Naruto eyes went wide and asked, Ino, how is she? Q placed her hand on his shoulder and said, relax. She's got a small fever but other than that she's asleep. You get you some rest so you can keep us moving tonight. Nina got us going right now and I will check on her to make sure she's taking us where we need to go. Sleep for now. As she cast an illusion on Naruto who felt his eyelids grow heavy and fell asleep. On the island all the cage bunchen that were left went up in smoke when Nina hit Naruto and the vampire emerged from the ground and looked at the smoke and then looked at her arm that was bleeding and now a stump and thought, I will have my revenge Uzumaki. As she looked out to sea before phasing back into the ground. Naruto when he woke up several hours later frowned and thought, damn, the vampire is still alive. As he got up and washed up before he walked into the cabin where Ino was. He saw Q sitting there and asked, "How is she?" Q said, "She is still asleep and has not woke up and her color is slowly turning paler, but besides the fever she does not seem to be in any pain." Naruto walked over and held Ino's hand and asked, "Is there any way my healing ability could work on her to help her?" Q frowned and said, "If I was still inside you maybe, but now, no. Your healing and your senses were both blood gifts I gave you to help you survive. It was all I could do to save your life, kid. No matter what anyone says, that was all the influence I had on you." Naruto smiled a little and said, "No, you had one more influence on me. You gave me a chance." As his eyes traced Ino's face, Q remained silent and said, "You might want to check up on Nina. She's been at her station ever since she knocked you out, and that's been nearly 10 hours ago. I've checked and we are still on the same course we have been since we launched. You shouldn't blame her though." Naruto bit his lip and said, "I know. I am just worried about Ino. She's all I have left of my old life now and I don't want to lose her. Konoha have been destroyed. I don't know if any of my precious people are still alive or if they are currently fighting for their lives while I." Q wrapped him in her arms in a hug and said, "You can't blame yourself. You were not strong enough back in Konoha to protect anyone more than you did." Naruto said, "I am never strong enough, my precious people always get hurt." In a defeated voice, Q said, "Then get stronger. No matter what, a part of you will always be a ninja, and as Pokegirls like strong guys just as much as we like kind ones." Naruto said, "I will get stronger, Q. I got my jutsu I can use, my parents left me, but will that be enough?" Q said, "Remember that kid Lee? He couldn't use ninjutsu or kenjutsu and he could kick everyone's ass except that Gaara kid. Once you learn all your ninjutsu, learn taijutsu, once you learn that then kenjutsu, and after that learn genjutsu. You don't need to learn them from other people. You can always make them yourself. Remember to get back up, kid." Naruto nods as he squeezes Ino's hand one more time before he got up and said, "Thanks, Q." As he got up and left, Q watched him leave and looked at Ino and thought, "You girl will always have a special place in his heart that no one will ever be able to fill or help take away the pain. Don't die, if not for yourself then for the kid." When Naruto walked onto the deck he saw Nina at the navigational wheel and he walked over and said, "So?" Nina said, "We are still on course, Captain, and are making good time. The wind changed directions about 4 hours ago and has been helping give us more speed." Naruto asked, "If we use the engines would that help us get there faster?" Nina said, "No, Captain. If we used the engines we would lose speed because the wind would not catch the sails as much. I would agree with your idea of saving those for when either the wind was against us or we had no wind." Naruto looked at Nina's face and saw how serious she was, and as he took the wheel asked, "Why are you really here, Nina?" Nina asked, "What do you mean, Captain?" Naruto said, "I mean, why did you decide to be here with me? You never attacked any of my clones when I attacked Slutster's ship and you left it before I did. My clone that was blowing a hole in the hull saw you running toward this ship across the water. Why did you decide to actually come here?" Nina was quite a few moments and her voice changed from a strict sailor and subordinate to a kinder, gentler voice, and she said, "I wanted a chance to be happy. My first master was a cruel man. He was also a pirate and attacked my parents' ship and kidnapped me as a child when I was still a human girl." Causing Naruto to glance at her as she held her arms around her and continued, "I was only about 10 at the time and he treated me as a slave who had to wash his cloths, clean his cabin, get his food, and bath him. His Pokegirls he had as his crew were not much better than I was, and when I could I spent time with them to try and be happy. When I turned 13 I threshold and became a slicer. At that time he kicked me out of his cabin and made me become a member of his crew. Luckily for me the guy couldn't get it up, so he had his alpha to keep us from going feral. I don't know exactly how she kept tamed herself, and personally I didn't care. I was only in his actual crew for about a month when we were attacked by Slutster and she gave us the choice to join her crew or go down with him. 3 of us joined her crew and the others didn't care about him, but they cared about the ship, stupid buttoneers." Naruto at this time had turned to watch her completely and she said, "After that I served on the ship until I came into contact with a water stone and I evolved. When I evolved I quickly earned Slutster respect by becoming the second best swordsperson on the ship after the captain and became her first officer. Like before I kept from going feral thanks to the other Pokegirls. Naruto asked, so why didn't you ever get a human tamer? Nina snickered and said, simple, I told you how there was 3 of us that went with Slutster, remember? The other 2 joined her because she claimed she hated human males just like they did because of the treatment they experienced thanks to our first master. Everyone we came across she sunk their ships and left them to die in the middle of the ocean. Naruto saw her shiver a little as the wind blew and he asked, so why did you decide to come with me then? I mean, weren't you happy with her and the other girls? Nina smiled softly and looked at Naruto and said, remember your first words when you got on the ship after you asked why we attacked? Flashback. Naruto snarled and said, listen bitch. I don't care who you are and personally I don't care, but you put my precious people in danger and I won't stand for it. As he held his sword in front of him making all the Pokegirls laugh at him. End flashback. Naruto nods and Nina said, your eyes showed such determination and something inside of me just felt right. I knew somehow that you would win and I wanted to be one of your precious people, so I made a choice and the rest is history. We're off course, Captain. As her voice became serious again and Naruto looked and adjusted the helm quickly to correct the course. Naruto bit his lip and looked out at the sea and said, Nina. I am sorry for the way I acted back there after I found Ino hurt. It's just that she's special to me because we have known each other since children. We were in the academy together and even though my life there was hell, I always felt that Konoha was my home because I was born there and my parents died to defend it. The day I left with Q, our village was attacked and destroyed. I don't know if any of my precious people I had there are even alive now or if they all have been killed or are dying as we speak by the people who attacked the village. When I found Ino, I felt like Kami finally gave me a break in life to keep something that wouldn't be taken away. To me, Ino is my only link to my past and my precious people I will probably have now, since even if I went back where I came from there's no place to go back to. I felt like I was losing everything again when I found Ino after she had been attacked. I let my anger from it cloud my mind and I wanted to blame someone, so first I blamed you until you told me who it was that attacked you and... He was silenced when Nina placed her fingers on his lips and she said, I understand, Captain. She's precious to you. That's all you have to say. I just hope someday I will be precious to you as she is. Naruto closed his eyes as a tear fell and he pulled Nina into a hug. Nina held him in her arms and after a few minutes Naruto stepped back and said, sorry. Nina smiled and said, it's all right, Captain. Naruto asked, do you even know my name? Nina said, Naruto Uzumaki. Q told me. Naruto said, you don't have to call me Captain. Just Naruto will be fine. Nina said, sorry Captain Fishcakes, but I can't do that. With a smile on her face. Naruto snickered a moment and sighed and said, thanks. I needed that. Why don't you get you some rest so you can relieve me in the morning? Tell Q to get her some sleep also, but stay in the room with Ino in case she gets worse. Nina said, right Naruto. As she turned and went below deck. Naruto closed his eyes a moment and prayed, don't let me lose anyone else. The next 5 days dragged by for Naruto as his worry for Ino increased every day. Q and Nina kept him going. Ino got paler and paler until she looked almost albino and she never woke up, but her fever remained throughout the entire trip. When land came into view, Naruto thought, finally. Please let someone on this island be able to help her. As Naruto with the help of Nina docked Konoha on a pier, Naruto asked, have you ever been here before? Nina said, once, when I was still with my parents. Naruto nodded and asked, where is the nearest doctor? Nina said, you're going to have to take her to a poke center. It's the only medical facility out here. In fact, most of the world is like that. Hospitals only appear in areas where high numbers of humans live. You're really not from around here, are you? As she looked at him. Naruto frowned and said, I will tell you later. Just go and see if you can find this poke center and come back while Q and I get Ino prepared to move. Nina nods and runs up the pier and out of sight, and Naruto turned and saw Q with Ino in her arms bridal style and said, let's go, kid. Leave a few clones to watch the ship. As she began to walk up the pier, Naruto quickly created 6 cage bunshin and had them henge into different Pokegirls he saw on the pirate ship and followed after Q. Nina met them at the end of the pier and said, I found it up the road about 2 blocks. Naruto said, lead the way. As Nina turned and began to jog lightly as Naruto and Q matched her pace. As a tall 3-story building with a giant pokeball for a sign on top of it came into view, Nina said, "That's it." And Naruto and Q both went full speed, leaving Nina in the dust, and she thought, fast. As she ran to catch up. As Naruto entered the building, he saw a woman in a nursing outfit with pink hair, and Q got in front of him and said, "We need medical attention." She was attacked by a feral Pokegirl. The girl behind the counter said, "Oh my goodness, follow me quickly." As she led them to a room, and she asked, "Do you know what attacked her?" Q started to say something when Naruto said, "We think it was a vampire." The girl turned quickly, wide-eyed, looking at Naruto, and then turned back and asked, "Where was she bit?" "Never mind." As she removed the bandage on the neck, and she frowned and asked, "How long ago was she bit?" Nina, who had caught up now, said, 6 days. The girl frowned and said, "There's nothing I can do for her." Q said, "Wait, can't you use your healing abilities to help her?" The girl lowered her head and said, "If I was like most Nurse Joys I could, but I am not." Naruto blinked and asked, "What do you mean?" Nurse Joy said, "Don't worry about it. There is nothing I can do for her, but there is someone here on the island can but." Naruto asked, "But what?" Nurse Joy said, "Nothing. Look, if you want to save this girl, take the trail north of the village and go all the way to the top of the mountain. There is a temple there, and if anyone on this island can help her they can, but you must hurry." Naruto picked Ino up bridal style and quickly left, and Nina started to leave and saw Q wasn't following and asked, "Are you coming, Q?" Q said, "I will follow shortly." "Go with him, Nina." Nina nods and runs after Naruto. After they were gone, Nurse Joy was looking down under Q's stare and asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Without looking up, Q crossed her arms and said, "Yes. You can tell me exactly why you can't heal her. The real reason. I still detect traces of white magic in this place, so why did you not heal her?" Nurse Joy frowned and looked up and said, "Because I don't remember how to." Q blinked and asked, "What do you mean?" Nurse Joy sighed and sat down and said, "As you may or may not know, all Nurse Joys are born with knowledge of human and Pokegirl anatomy for all species. My master decided that he wanted me to become a night nurse, so he put me in one fight after another, and during the fighting I kept getting hit, and eventually I took the wrong hit and lost all my knowledge of how to heal humans. It's why I am here in this poke center now in the middle of nowhere instead of with my master. He got attacked by a feral Pokegirl and needed medical attention, and he called me to save him, but..." Q said, "You couldn't save him because you didn't know how to." Nurse Joy nods and said, "It's the same with the girl just now. If I could remember the human anatomy, then I could have cured her, but without that knowledge it could cost her life if I messed up. I have tried to relearn it, but I get these terrible headaches every time I try to relearn them." Q said, "Alright, I better get going then." As she teleported away, she appeared beside Naruto, who was running up the hill, and Q said, "Don't lose your cool up here, kid. Temples are strange, but they're the only ones who could help Ino." Naruto nods as he picked up his speed-pumping chakra into his legs. 20 minutes later, Naruto with Ino still in his arms arrived at the top of the mountain and saw a huge wall with a gate and a tower behind the gate, and Naruto ran toward the gate and saw several women with black hair and either red or blue eyes wearing red hakama, either pants or skirt, a white kimono shirt with swinging sleeves, and white socks, and he screamed, "Hey, I need some help." As he ran toward the woman, when he got closer he saw that they all were looking at him, and another woman who was taller than the others with larger, dressed similar to the other woman, but she seemed to have a glow about her, and she asked, "What is it you need?" Q looked around at the temple and her eyes landed on a temple symbol and thought, "You have got to be shitting me." As she looked back over at Naruto and Ino, Naruto said, "My friend here was attacked by a feral vampire, and the girl down in the village said the only ones here who could save her would be here." The tall woman asked, "What girl?" Q said, "The Nurse Joy at the Poke Center." Just then Nina got to the top of the mountain and ran over toward Q panting. The tall woman looked at Ino and asked, "How long ago was she bitten?" Naruto quickly answered, 6 days. The tall woman looked at Naruto and then at Nina and Q and asked, "Is the kitsune and the pirated in your harem?" Naruto said, "Yes." The tall woman saw Q cross her arms, and Q said, "Look, priestess, you and your maidens here are the only ones who can help save her life, and that's all that is important at the moment. Will you save her?" The priestess said, "We can save her, but the question is, are you willing to pay the price?" Naruto said, Anything. The priestess locked eyes with Naruto and asked, even your life for hers. Nina flinched at the way the priestess said that and Q closed her eyes and Naruto said, yes. Still locking eyes with the priestess. As his eyes changed from blue to red and became slitted, earning a gasp from Nina and a couple of the shrine maidens. The priestess finally looked away and said, very well. Come inside. As she turned and a couple of maidens opened the gates. Naruto followed, still holding Ino, and as Nina started to enter, the maidens said, only the boy and the girl. You both must stay out here. Nina said, but only for Q to place her hand on Nina's shoulder and said, let it go, Nina. Trust in the kid and pray that him and Ino both survive somehow. Let's go to the ship and wait there. As she turned and began to walk away, Nina followed and after they were out of sight asked, why are you so calm about this? Q smirked and said, you didn't notice what that shrine is devoted to, did you? As she crossed her arms and kept walking, Nina said, no, why? Q glanced back over her shoulders and said, Dracula, Lord of the Vampires. Nina freezes in her place and asked, what? Q giggles and said, relax. I actually know about this religion thanks to an old friend. Before we were created there was legends of vampires that existed. One such legend was about Dracula, Lord of the Vampires. Another was about a legendary vampire hunter named Van Helsing. My friend I mentioned a few minutes ago was a Pokegirl professor. He wanted to try and figure out what it was in the vampire that was able to turn even males into females before they became vampires themselves. When they survived, that is. He researched all the pre-Pokegirl records and legends on vampires and he made trips to shrines like this one to research there with the priestess's help. In exchange for them sharing all the info they had on vampire Pokegirls, he gave them all the knowledge he had on the history of vampires. After that, those temples that he visited changed their religion from vampires in general to the Lord of Vampires. Nina asked, and you're not worried about Naruto back there with them worshipping this Dracula? Q said, nope. Nina asked, why? Q stopped and said, simple. Dracula was a male vampire. I figure that what they are going to do is make sure Ino survives the bite by becoming a vampire and have her bite him to feed, and they hope that he will turn into Dracula. Nina asked, and this doesn't bother you? Q said, nope. As she started to walk again, Nina sighed and Q said, to answer your why, the answer is simple. When I was sealed inside him I gave him 2 blood gifts. Kitsune senses and advanced healing. His home village tried to kill him so many times he is practically immune to every poison, organic and non-organic ever created, and those he isn't when they hit his blood will be killed thanks to my chakra that is still sealed inside of him. The worst that can happen to him is he needs a blood transfusion from having Ino sucking too much blood from him, but we have a cure back on the boat that can fix that problem by making his body produce blood by taking a simple pill by burning the fat cells in his body. Nina frowned and said, what if you're wrong? Q said, trust me. With a smile on her face. Back with Naruto and Ino. Naruto followed the priestess inside the tower and he asked, so what do we do to save Ino? The priestess asked, are you sure you're willing to give your life to save her? This is the last chance I will ask. Naruto said, yes, I will do anything to save her, even give up my life. The priestess said, very well. There is a table in the center of the next room. You must put her on the table and put her arms and legs in the straps. After you're done with that, come back here. Naruto nods and walks through a door and sees several glowing stones around the room and puts Ino on the table that looks like a circle, and he puts her arms above her head into straps and does the same to her feet. When he is done he walks toward the door and said as he looks back, I won't let you die, Ino. It's a promise. As he walked out, once he does, 2 shrine maidens walk into the room and Naruto sees they raise a stone slab around the circle table and then come out and close the door. Naruto sees the shrine priestess who waves for him to follow and he nods before following her up a set of stairs and another until they get to the 5th floor of the tower. When they do, Naruto sees another table like he put Ino on and the shrine priestess said, now in order for you to save your life you're going to have to get on that table and put your hands in the straps like you did for her. Once you do that we have to wait until sunset for the ritual to start. Naruto asked, what exactly is the ritual? The priestess said, it is a temple secret. The girl will live, I promise you that on my honor as a priestess. Naruto said, alright, that's all I need to know then. As he walked over and said, How do I do this with my cloths on because my hands and feet won't be able to get in the straps with them on? The priestess said, oh, I forgot to mention that. It's been so long since we did this ritual. You will have to strip down all your cloths so that way nothing is wasted. Naruto frowned and thought, great, just what I need to save Ino. Sarcastically, Naruto took off his cloths and lay down on the table and put his feet in the straps first and then his hands, and he asked, what now? The priestess walked over and like the maidens had done with Ino, she raised a stone slab around the circle table, and the priestess said, make peace with whatever faith you believe in. I honor you with your willingness to save your friend. As she stepped on a lever on the floor and the straps bound tightly to Naruto's skin, shocking him. Naruto asked, hey, what was that for? The priestess said, you must stay still for the ritual. Do not try to escape if you truly wish to save your friend's life. If you do, she will die. As she turned and left the room, sealing the door, Naruto frowned as he thought, what now? As the sun slowly set, Naruto thought about his life and about Q, Nina, and Ino, and about the people he left behind, and thought, I will do whatever I have to make sure I don't lose anyone else. As the sun set, Naruto was deep in thought when suddenly he screamed out in pain as several blades shot out of the table and stabbed him in his arms, legs, back, and he bit his lip and thought, what the hell? As he saw his blood running across the table and into the sides, as he felt the blades still inside his body breaking the skin, keeping him from healing. As Naruto blood flowed across the table, water slowly began to fall from the ceiling like rain, and it mixed with his blood and slowly went into little grooves before it started to travel down the tower. As the water and blood mix traveled, chanting was heard throughout the tower. In the room where Ino was, 12 angel stones glowed white at exactly each location. A number on a clock would be around the room, and underneath Ino a dark stone began to glow, and then above Ino a shower of blood and water mixed together fell on top of the table she was on, slowly filling up around her. Up with Naruto, he thought, okay, this is getting crazy now. I thought they meant would I die protecting her or something. I didn't think they meant would I bleed to death to save her, but if me dying will save her life, I will do it. Down in the village, Q sighed as she watched the sunset and thought, hurry up, kid. Nina asked, do you think we should go check on them? Just then the sound of chanting could be heard covering the entire island, and Q sighed and said, no. Looks like there is a ritual involved in saving her life. I hate rituals. Mine was a nightmare. In the Poke Center, Nurse Joy frowned as she heard the chanting and thought, so he is going to do it. He is going to give his life to save hers. I wish I could save him. If I could remember, I could have saved her and now him. Why am I such a failure? First in combat, then saving my master life, then saving that girl life, and now his. Why can't I do it? What must I do to finally be able to save them? What do I have to sacrifice? As she closed her eyes and began squeezing her hands into fist, drawing blood from squeezing them, as she thought of all her failures and all the people who needed her and she couldn't save, as she mentally screamed, why can't I do anything? Why? 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 And she screamed, why? As she flung her eyes open and began to glow. Her went to a D cup, her height increased from 5 feet to 5 to 8, and her hair started to change from pink to black with pink streak. Her eyes turned black while her pupils turned white, and when the glow died down she blinked and looked at herself and said, I remember. As she took of running out of the Poke Center and ran toward the tower. When she got there, she saw the gates were closed and her body began to glow and body armor began to cover her, and she ran toward the door. Wings popped out of her body armor and she flew over the gates and began to fly toward the top of the tower where there were several windows. When she flew through the open window, she saw the water falling on Naruto, and she ran over to him and began to chant quickly and said, Kuraga. As white light covered Naruto, healing his body, restoring the blood he had lost, and she chanted again and said, Regent. As Naruto's body glowed again, her fingers formed scalpels and she cut the straps and pulled him off the table, and she then ran toward the only door in the room and opened it. As she ran down the stairs, ignoring the chanting coming from different rooms, and as she got to the bottom floor she opened the door like the one in Naruto's room, and she saw the glowing stones and stopped as she saw the tub of bloody water, and she began to chant and said, Blessed soul. As the water glowed. As the glow died down, she was already chanting again and said, Isuna. And she began to chant one more time and said, Kuraga. As the tank glowed one final time as the angel stones glowed and flew toward Ino and the dark stone under Ino shattered, the entire room glowed before the tank that Ino was in exploded. As the light from the explosion cleared, the former nurse Joy whispered, "My God." After the light died down, the body of Ino made a groaning noise a few seconds as she slowly opened her eyes and sat up slowly and looked around as her eyes landed on the figure of the former nurse Joy, and she asked, "Who or what are you?" The girl said, "I don't have much time right now. You and your blonde friend are in danger. If we don't get you both out of here now, the priestess and her followers will kill you both. For now just call me nurse, okay?" Ino blinked a second, and as her mind came back she said, "Naruto, where is he?" As she quickly got up and she blinked and asked, "What happened to my cloths and what happened to me?" Nurse said, "Explain later if you don't want to die. Your friend is still recovering from saving your life, we have to hurry." As she turned and ran back up the stairs, Ino froze for only a second as she looked around and then took off after Nurse. When they reached the top floor, Ino saw Naruto on the floor with Nurse bent over him checking him out, and she said, "Besides the blood loss he will be okay, but we have to get him out of here before the others find out. The Kitsune and the Pirated are down at your ship." As she went to pick up Naruto's body only for Ino to pick him up first and said, "Let me. You lead the way." As she flung him over her shoulder in a fireman carry. Nurse nods and began to run down the tower when a maiden came out of a door, and Nurse slams her into the wall head first, knocking her out, and quickly runs to the next floor and out the door with Ino behind her. When they got to the gate, Nurse opened the gate, and as Ino ran out she pulled the gate closed and took off running down the trail, and Ino bit her lip as she looked around and thought, "Why is my vision different? I can see clearly and I can tell it's nighttime also. Why do I feel sickness behind me in that compound?" As she continued to run following the nurse. As they reached the town, Nurse led Ino toward the Poke Center and into the same room Ino had been brought to earlier. She then motioned toward the bed and Ino put Naruto down, and Nurse said, "Listen to me. I don't have much time to talk because the priestess and the others will find out you and him are gone and find that girl I knocked out on the way here and want revenge." Ino frowned and asked, "What's going on?" "I mean, the last thing I remember was looking in a warehouse for some cable and being attacked by something and waking up a few minutes ago." A groan was heard and both girls looked and saw Naruto slowly opening his eyes, and he looked around and thought, "This looks like the Poke Center. How did I get here and where's Ino?" As he finally saw Nurse and Ino, and he went wide-eyed and stuttered, "Ino, is that you?" With shock in his voice. Ino said, "Of course it's me. Who else would I be?" As she looked at him. Naruto said, "Look at yourself in the mirror, Ino." As he pointed toward a mirror on the wall. Ino blinked and looked at herself and saw that her face looked like it had aged around 3 years, and her eyes had become slitted with white in the center surrounded by her normal blue. Her ears were slightly pointed, and as she looked down at her body she noticed that her were now a double C, and she had grew in size to be 5 to 10, and she had a pair of white wings that she slowly reached up and touched and said, "They're real." In odd amazement. She looked at herself again and she noticed that her canine's teeth on top had become longer, but as she went to touch them with her finger and tongue they shrunk down to almost normal, but they would grow back almost instantly. Ino turned and looked at Naruto, who was watching her, and she asked, "What happened to me, Naruto?" in a demanding voice. Naruto swallowed and said, "You were attacked by a vampire, Pokegirl Ino. I found you in the warehouse bleeding from a vampire bite." Ino blinked and asked, "What's a vampire?" Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out his Pokédex and said, "Search, vampire." As it beeped and he handed it to her and she read, and as she reached the end she asked, "So, am I a vampire?" in a somewhat scared and worried voice. Before Naruto could say anything, Nurse said, "No, you're not." Making both look at her. Ino asked, "Who are you exactly?" As she turned to Nurse still holding the Pokédex and it beeped and Ino saw it changed and she read, "Night Nurse, the tough love Pokegirl. Type: very near human. Element: normal. Infernal. Frequency: very rare. Diet: human style. Role: battlefield medics, town defense, bodyguards. Libido: low. Strong versus ghost, infernal. Weak versus fighting, celestial. Attacks: wing attack, fury swipes, hazy vision, dark goggles, dark shield, dark bomb, cocoon of darkness, blessed soul, dark redemption, dark mist, phoenix down, insulate, Karaga, Isuna. At higher levels, full revive, absorb, exorcism, regen, protect, shell, Newell all, dark holy. Enhancements. Can use dark type and magic type attacks without being either type, dark affinity, magic affinity, increased healing ability, wings for flight, natural armor, enhanced durability when armored, x6, enhanced speed, x4, enhanced strength, x2. Evolves. None. Evolves from Nurse Joy, Battle Stress. Nurse Joys are known to be kind, gentle Pokegirls in nature. But even they have limits. Even they can be pushed to a breaking point. The first known appearance of a night nurse was in a Limbeck pirate attack on a coastal town in 270 AS. The Nurse Joy, part of the harem of a visiting tamer, was kidnapped and raped by the pirates in an attempt to turn her. In desperation she started to fight back against her attackers, changing in a flash of light into a more powerful, more battle-ready form. She destroyed her attackers with Dark Holy, and proceeded to rescue her master and participate in the wrecking of the pirates attacking their town. Since then, there have only been a few more instances of night nurse evolutions. But where they do occur, they are more than welcome. When a Nurse Joy becomes a night nurse, they undergo several changes. The first and most obvious of these changes being a change in physical appearance. Their S grow a cup size, and they become taller and more muscular. Their faces become aquiline, almost hawk-like in appearance, and their hair grows out, becoming black with pink streaks in it. Their eyes also turn completely black, save for their pupils, which turn white. They gain the ability to cover themselves in a sort of organic armor, which is black with pink in it like their hair, and is shining and smooth to the touch. When they manifest it, it covers their arms, legs, most of their chest and belly, hips and butt, and part of their face. The armor also has a pair of large, metallic wings, which night nurses can use to fly or be used in a cutting attack. They can also sharpen their finger armor into scalpel points for emergency surgery. Studies have shown that the armor is completely sterile and remains that way no matter what touches it. Fortunately, the sterility of the armor does not affect the fertility of the Pokegirl, as all currently known night nurse Pokewomen have proven capable of breeding. Also to change is their personalities. Before, they would be caring and gentle, combining excellent bedside manner with superb medical care. Night nurses are strictly business. They are excellent healers, even better than Nurse Joys in many cases. However, they lack anything even remotely resembling bedside manner. They will fix your wounds no question, and bring you back to health. But they won't be as nice about it. After a few studies of the breed, night nurses were found to be best suited as battlefield medics, barreling into the battlefield and retrieving injured comrades, healing them up as quick as possible and sending them back into battle. Night nurses themselves are reasonably capable fighters, capable of healing themselves mid-battle and continuing on the fight. Night nurses are also excellent in team battles as they can heal their teammate on the fly and protect them as well. For a long time, it was unknown why night nurses would still be classified as a normal element Pokegirl when they have many dark element attacks. The reason was a shock to everyone. They are actually infernal Pokegirls. This was first discovered a year after the first night nurse was identified. A Megami was the first to sense it, and the Dark Lady fighting the Megami confirmed it, laughing mockingly and putting her arm around the night nurse, as if lording the fact that the celestial Pokegirl was outnumbered. Soon after, the night nurse put the Dark Lady's head through a wall. She healed her up afterwards, but only because her tamer told her to. Night nurses cannot stand other infernal Pokegirls. Unless given a good reason not to, they will pound the living daylights out of any infernal Pokegirl they see, with the obvious exception of other night nurses. Mizuku are actually as a whole terrified of night nurses, and become as gentle and harmless as titmice in the mere presence of one. Night nurses also don't care that much for celestial Pokegirls, but find them more tolerable than infernals. They just ignore them for the most part, as they consider celestials to be snooty. Thresholding into a night nurse is so far unrecorded at this point. However, due to increasing interest in this Pokegirl ways of evolving them without forcing them into battle or being researched. Naruto blinked and said, "So, you're the Nurse Joy that couldn't heal Ino before?" Nurse said, "Yeah, I had a head injury from a battle I was in and could not remember the human anatomy, so I couldn't help her, but then when I heard the ritual going again I wanted to help save not only her but you, and I felt like a failure like I did when my master died because I couldn't save him, and somehow I became stressed enough over it I evolved into a night nurse. After I evolved I got my memories back and I finally knew the human anatomy again, and I quickly went to the temple and first saved you. Naruto was it. As she looked at him and getting a nod she continued, anyways, after I used my white magic to heal your wounds and restoring your blood you lost, I cut you free, and then I went down to where Ino. Getting another nod, was, and I saw her body. I quickly used my white magic to heal her like I knew I could when she was still human. But Ino asked, what do you mean when I was still human? What has happened to me exactly? Nurse said, well, the ritual the shrine priestess and the shrine maidens used has only been done less than 20 times in the last 100 years, not counting this time. As you read, even males can become vampires, but they become female, and so what they were trying to do was to recreate a myth about a male vampire that existed before us Pokegirls did, named Dracula, by trying to create a ceremony to accomplish this. I know the temple here on the island has done it one time since it was built here, and they keep the Pokegirl they changed in the temple since the girl's master died trying to save his Pokegirl since I couldn't. I ran some of the test on the girl who was changed from their last attempt and it turned her into a semi-new type of Pokegirl the priestess calls Victoria, the bride of Dracula Pokegirl. She's nearly exactly like a vampire except her wings look like a wedding dress when they are folded around her and a veil over her face, and she seeks out vampires to have them tame her since she is feral. She kills any human who tries to tame her as well as any other Pokegirl who tries it except a vampire, and if she does get tamed she evolves one time into Victorian, the wife of Dracula Pokegirl, whose wings then change into what looks like a royal dress in many ways, and she has the ability to help control 30 vampires for her master, the vampire who tames her. All information on these type of Pokegirls have been restricted by the world governments, as well as exactly how the priestess turned the Pokegirls into them. The only reason I even know this much about them is because when I had to fill out the death certificate on the girl's original master from before she had changed, I had to submit it to the government, and they gave me the basic info and told me if she ever left the island to search for a vampire I had to inform them immediately, because if they leave the temple they are to be killed, because every time one actually becomes a Victorian the vampire they serve and their harems begin attacking the closest human village, and in one case killed everyone in a small town once by sucking their blood dry. Ino gulped and Ino asked in a scared voice, am I a Victoria or a Victorian? Nurse said, no, you're. Actually I don't know how to say this, but you actually are a new type of Pokegirl. I guess when I came to save you both by adding my white magic into their ritual it changed you. I don't know the full extent, but you don't seem feral right now. Ino slowly sat down on the bed and her wings disappeared into her skin, and Naruto bit his lip and he scooted over and put his arms around her in a hug and said, I am sorry Ino. I just won. As she pulled back and put her fingers to his lip and said, I know. Somehow I know that you were willing to die to save me. Nurse said, it's probably because of all of his blood you were in earlier. Vampires, when they drink the blood of their victims, get some of their victims' memories. Ino frowned and said, so what exactly is going to happen to me? I mean, can you tell me anything? Nurse said, well, if we had more time and if you would let me I could run some tests on you, but... Naruto blinked and asked, what do you mean if we had more time? Why can't you help her now? As he looked at Nurse. Nurse said, look, I don't know what you know about Shrine Priestess and Shrine Maidens, but you should know that normally they are peaceful and won't attack anyone unless it's a last resort, but anyone who disrespects their religion of worshipping Dracula they will either hurt or kill anyone who interferes with their practices, and by me coming to save you interrupting their ritual they are going to be coming to kill me, and I don't want you both here when they do it because they believe that you Naruto should be dead from their religion point of view and will attack you to make it so, and they will either take you Ino back to their temple to decide what to do with you or kill you, so please return to your ship and leave before they come. Naruto looked at Nurse and said, what about you? Nurse said, I knew what would happen and I made a choice to save you. Ino bit her lip and looked at Naruto and said, why don't you come with us? Nurse looked at her and said, but I am just a night nurse. One who has lost her master because of her own failures. I wouldn't be of any use to you or your master. Ino blinked and said, but I don't have a master. I am a free person and... Nurse said, You must not have had much contact with Pokegirls before Ino when you were human, but you are a Pokegirl now. You could have gotten away with not needing a master as a human and not worry about going feral, but now that you have threshold, I guess we can say your way of thinking and living is going to be different. I don't know what your relationship with Naruto here is, but sooner or later you will go feral and you are going to find human and Pokegirls who will try to tame you and have you join their humans. I seen how Naruto here cares about his other two Pokegirls, and I think you would be lucky to have him as your master. Not all tamers are as nice as he is. Most see us as nothing but creatures of tools or slaves. Ino frowned and Naruto said, "You can worry about it later, Ino. I won't pressure you into anything, especially since we need to get out of here, but you. What exactly is your name?" "I mean, I can't keep calling you Night Nurse." Nurse smiled a little and said, "I don't really have a name. My first master just called me Nurse so he could remember what I did." Ino frowned at that and thought, what am I going to do? If her master didn't even give her a name, then how are people going to treat me? Naruto frowned and said, "Then how about you come with us and I give you a name?" Nurse blinked and said, "Why would you want me to come with you?" Naruto said, "Because I don't want you to die because you saved our lives and you said it yourself. You don't have to call me master or anything like that, and you can leave our group anytime you like, and while you're with us you could test Ino and help her understand her changes better than anyone else I know, even if she chose to go later deciding she doesn't want to travel with me anymore. I won't force you or anything, but the least I can do for you for saving Ino and my life is give you a ride away from here to anywhere you want to go." Nurse blinked and looked at Ino, who said, "I think he's right. I trust you since you saved my life, and I don't really know what is going on with my body now, or really that of Pokegirls in general, and you could help tell me things I need to know. Please come with us. I don't want you to die either." Nurse smiled and asked, "What about the rest of your harem? Will they accept me?" Naruto said, "Q and I have been together since the day I was born, and Nina was originally an enemy who joined me to have a better life. Neither would have anything against you because they trust me and I trust you, and I don't trust hardly anyone." Nurse said, "Well, what is my name, master?" Naruto thought a moment and said, "How about Rin, after my father's student? She was a medic nin and was the nurse who delivered me before she died that same day. I would like to honor her memory by giving you her name." Making Ino look at him questionably. Rin said, "I like it. Let me grab a few things and I will be ready to go, master." Naruto said, "Just call me master. I don't know much about Pokegirls either, but I do know that you're just as human as I am." Rin said, "All right, Naruto. I will be ready in a few minutes." As she left the room and began to get some things, Naruto turned to Ino, who was looking at him, and asked, "Are you okay, Ino?" Ino bit her lip and asked, "Why were you willing to die to save me?" "I was a bitch to you, Naruto, as we grew up. For that matter, why did you let me come with you?" Naruto sighed and said, "Look, Ino. I know I am an idiot, the dead last, the dobi. I know many see me as a demon or monster, and I know I can be annoying. I also know you, Ino. I know that you can be vocal about your opinion and that you never went out of your way to hurt me, and a few times you were nice to me, and I think if I had not been such an idiot we might have been friends back in Konoha, or at least I would like to think that. I know since I found you on that island we have been friends, and those who I have as friends are precious to me since I have so few of them. You're precious to me and I would do anything for my precious people. A friend told me once that true strength can only come from protecting your precious people. I believe that, Ino, with all my heart, and if my dying would save the lives of any of my precious people I would give my life in a heartbeat. You give me the strength to do it without a moment of doubt." Ino was looking down by now and asked, "You still think I am precious even when I look like this?" Naruto moved over to where she now stood and put his hand under her chin and raised her head to look in her eyes and said, "Truth is, Ino, I think it makes you look like the angel you always were, and coming from a demon like me As he was cut off by Ino pressing her lips to his as her wings that had grown back out when she stood up covered them from view. As she broke the kiss her cheeks were red and Naruto smiled and said, "Come on. We can talk later after we get back to Konoha." Ino smiled and nods, and they left the room and found Rin standing at the door with a bag full of items beside her, and Naruto picked up the bag and asked, "Ready?" Rin and Ino both nod, and Naruto began to run toward the pier where Konoha was docked. When they arrived, Q was laying on the deck looking at the sky, and Nina was on the mast checking all the cables, and Naruto said as he helped Ino and Rin on board, "Cast off and prepare to set sail. We have to get out of here now." in a commanding voice. Nina said, "Hi, Captain," as she jumped down and released the docking lines. Q looked at Ino and Rin, and Naruto said, "Q, prepare for combat until we get out to sea safely," making both Nina and Q look at him questionably. Q asked, "What's up, Kit?" Naruto said, "Let's just say that our popularity is about to match mine back home on my birthday. If it wasn't for Rin here, then both Ino and I would be dead right now." Nina shot a look at Q and said, "Nothing bad was going to happen, huh, Q?" Q shot her a look and said, "Shut up, Nina," as she began to look around for any danger. And hours later, as they were out to sea, Ino turned and said, "That's strange." Everyone looked at her and Naruto asked, "What?" Ino said, "Ever since I woke up back in the temple, I could feel this sick feeling coming from the temple, but just now it vanished." Rin thought a moment and said, "Perhaps you can sense vampires." Vampires can sense vampires short distances away. It is probably only about 5 miles away from the island. Naruto asked, "But what does that mean?" Rin said, "At this time I couldn't tell you. I would have to run some tests, and I am a little tired at the moment from just evolving. The hormone rush is finally over." Naruto looked at Ino, who was looking around, and asked, "What are you looking at, Ino?" Ino said, "You know, it looks different at night when you can actually see what is out there. It gets rid of your fear of the dark, the unknown." Naruto said, "So you have night vision, huh?" Ino shrugged and said, "I guess. It's different, but I can still see what's out there. I see a ship about 2 miles north heading toward the island we just left." Naruto looked and narrowed his eyes and asked, "Is it that big blur about there?" As he pointed at a spot out to sea. Ino said, "Yeah, but it's not a blur. I can see it, and I can almost see the name on the ship." Q whistled and said, "Your night vision better than both mine and Kit's, Ino." Ino blinked and said, "Really? That's cool, I guess," as she rubbed her shoulders. Naruto said, "Yeah, it is, Ino. It gives you a chance to see things sooner than we do and can help warn us so we can prepare." Ino snorts and said, "I already realized that, Naruto. I am just saying it's nothing big when you can see a guy using a whip on a girl 2 miles away and you know there is nothing you can do to help them." Making everyone frown as Ino turned and walked below deck and went to sleep. After she left Naruto's side and looked at Nina and Rin and asked, "Is that what it is really like for Pokegirls?" Nina frowned and Rin said, "Unfortunately for most, yes. Like I told Ino, she would be lucky to have a master like you instead of some of the other options. I can't tell you how many times I've seen girls come in wounded and it not be because of a battle but because of their masters disciplining them." Naruto bit his lip and said, "I see," as he looked at Nina a moment. Naruto sighed and said, "So now that we are out to sea, anyone have any idea where to go?" I mean, I originally had planned to head up to the Blue League since that is the area Q was most familiar with, but I think I need to do some training." Rin flinched a little until Nina said, "Yeah, I will help you learn to use that huge hunk of steel you call a sword." Naruto nods and he put his hands together and said, "Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." And suddenly over 500 Kage Bunshin appeared on the boat and out on the sea. Naruto said, "All right. I want you all to work on the Rasengan from Dad's scrolls while water walking. I still need to work on my chakra control, and the Rasengan is mostly chakra control." Rin's eyes got wide and asked, "How?" as she looked at the clones. Naruto looked at Q and Q said, "Naruto and Ino are from somewhere none of you have ever been to before. The people there actually never knew of Pokegirls since their ancestors destroyed all records of us." Nina said, "So it's like a reverse to Sanctuary, so instead of only Pokegirls living there it's only humans." Rin asked, "How do they have kids then? I mean, surely there had to be some Pokegirls there to make new babies." Q glanced at Naruto, who said, "No, we didn't. Women there were able to have children. Nina can prove to you Ino was able to before she was originally attacked. I don't know all the details and you are not allowed to tell anyone because there are lots of innocent people there who are protected as it is and I don't want any of them hurt, but to answer to your question, I was a ninja. That is how I can do this. Ino was one as well until our home village was destroyed by our enemies." Rin said, "I see. I won't tell anyone, and that explains why you and Ino don't really know much about Pokegirls." Naruto nods and Rin said, "Well, I think I will go and talk to Ino." As she turned and walked down below deck, Naruto turned toward Nina and Q said, "Well, Nina, What's the best course to get us to Blue League? Nina said, right, permission to set course, Captain. Naruto nods and Nina quickly took the helm and began to adjust course. Naruto smiled and he unsealed his sword and began to slowly swing it, and Nina asked, "What are you doing?" As she glanced back, Naruto said, "I need to get used to the weight of this thing better. I was having to use chakra to hold it up when I fought on that ship, and I want to get my physical strength up to where I can carry it no problem." Nina shook her head and said, "Q, can you come here a second and take the helm while I do something?" Q jumped down and took the helm, and Nina went below deck and came back a few minutes later with a rope, and she began to climb up the mast and tied the rope to the top and threw it down below. When she climbed down, she walked over and tied it to the anchor and said, "All right, Captain. If you want to work on physical strength, here is an exercise I learned to help with it." As she wrapped her legs around the newly secured line and then used only one arm and pulled herself up with that one arm. When she got to the top, she dropped her legs and then used both arms to walk down the rope and did it again with her other arm. Naruto said, "I see, so I am using my body weight to make myself stronger. That will work." As he went and started to do the exercise, and when Nina got back to Q and took the helm, Q said, "It also helps that the kit's got gravity weights on." Nina blinked and asked, "Gravity weights? What's gravity weights?" Q said, "Weights that can double, triple, and so on the amount of gravity that is pulling down on the body." Nina said, "But I don't see any weights." Q raised her shirt sleeve and said, "It's a seal." As she showed the seal on her arm, Nina said, "I see. Think Captain will let me have one." Q nods and asked, "So why are you not telling Kid about you starting to go feral?" Nina asked, "What are you talking about?" As she shifted her weight, Q said, "You're not the first pirate I came across, so I know when one starts to go feral, she basically becomes a workaholic until she either gets some or burns out. The past 3 days you have been doing everything you can to stay busy, and you're only slept about 3 hours in those 3 days. You got bags under your eyes already." Nina frowned and said, I can't ask him back." Q interrupted her by screaming, "Hey Kid, come here a moment." Naruto, who was on his way back down the line, let go and landed on the deck and walked over to Q, who grabbed him and shoved him into Nina and said, "She needs some TLC. She's been working her ass off trying to impress you so you can tame her, or do you want her to go feral?" As she flashed her eyes red, Naruto gulped and looked at Nina, who was fidgeting a little, and said, "I guess I haven't been a good tamer, huh?" Nina said, "I am sorry, Captain. I usually only need tamed once every week, but..." Naruto grabbed her hand softly and said, "You don't have to tell me. I understand. Come on." As he led her down below deck. As they passed the room where Ino and Rin were, Naruto asked, "Are you both okay in here?" Ino said, "Yeah, why?" Naruto said, "Nothing, just wanted to make sure." As he walked to his cabin, and once Nina was also in, he closed the door. Ino blinked as they walked by and asked, "What's that about?" Rin said, "Nina needs tamed, she was beginning to go feral." Ino began to get red and she said, "I see. Do you think you can explain being a Pokegirl to me again?" Rin said, "Glad to. Naruto told me about why you and him don't know so much about us." As she moved her glowing hand down Ino's arm and began to tell about the history of Pokegirls. Inside Naruto's cabin, Naruto turned and looked at Nina, who was on her knees sitting on them, and he asked, "What are you doing?" Nina said, "Waiting for you to give me permission to undress, Captain." Naruto sighed and said, "Nina, you don't need my permission. If you don't want." As Nina quickly shouted, "No, I mean I need this." As she calmed down, Naruto said, "Okay, then please stand up." As he walked over to her, and when she stood up, he slowly kissed her, shocking Nina, who closed her eyes and began to return the kiss as Naruto hand rubbed her back. Nina's hands began to unbutton the shirt Naruto had on, and she slipped it off as she broke the kiss before she quickly shed her cloths, and Naruto looked at her body. Nina smiled and asked, "So do you like it, Captain?" Naruto kissed her again, and Nina stepped back and said, "I'm not a fragile little girl who needs to be gentle with. Besides, I like it rough." With a smirk on her face, Naruto looked at her and said, "Rough, huh?" Nina nods and Naruto smirked as well and said, "Then let's test that." As he quickly slipped the rest of his cloths off, and then before Nina had a chance to do anything, Naruto had her pinned against the wall as he began to kiss her passionately as he began to slam into her. In the next room, Rin said, "And so you see, because of the as suddenly a slam was heard against the cabin wall. Ino asked, "What was that?" Just then another slam was heard and Ino said, "Oh, you have got to be kidding me." The next morning when Naruto came out of his cabin, he walked up on the deck and saw Ino sitting there glaring at him, and he asked, "What?" Ino said, 8 fucking hours. 8 hours. I had to hear yours and her moans for 8 hours. I wound up having to sleep up here on deck because of all the noise. Naruto said, "Sorry." Q said, "Don't worry kid, because tonight you and I will be beating that record." Ino paled and said, "Why me?" That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.